Chapter 3284. Jiao Lao, it's written here that a jade pendant is required to refine a profound qi necklace. I wonder if my jade pendant can be used for refining? Lin Yi asked. It was better to ask Zhao Yazi about this kind of thing. Lin Yi didn't dare to make a decision on his own. Of course it can. Zhao Yazi didn't play dumb this time. Instead, he said with certainty, from the refining method, a small space in the jade pendant was expanded to store the 5 spiritual qi inner elixirs. Therefore, your jade pendant won't be damaged. You can refine it without worry. Even if you don't succeed, the jade pendant won't be damaged. At most, your spiritual qi inner elixir will be destroyed. It's painful to have my spiritual qi inner elixir destroyed. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Lin Yi had spent a lot of effort to collect these 5 spiritual qi inner elixirs. Lin Yi would be very sad if they were destroyed just like that. It's better than having my jade pendant destroyed, isn't it? Jiao Lao asked with a smile. That's true. Lin Yi nodded. After preparing the 5 spiritual qi inner elixirs, pure topaz, blue crystal, and colored steel, Lin Yi took a deep breath and started to refine the profound qi necklace. Although the jade pendant wouldn't be damaged if it wasn't refined successfully, all the materials would be destroyed. Lin Yi had spent a lot of effort to collect these materials. For this blue crystal, Lin Yi almost lost his life. Therefore, it was impossible for him to be careless. After carefully reading the instructions of the profound qi necklace several times, Lin Yi carefully placed the colored steel, pure topaz, and blue crystal in a certain proportion on the ground. Then, he took off the jade pendant on his neck. Before making the necklace, Lin Yi once again read the instructions on how to condense the profound qi necklace several times. Of course, the instructions were relatively simple, not much different from condensing the space inside the jade pendant, but there were a few more steps. Fortunately, Lin Yi had the experience of successfully condensing the jade pendant space in one try, so this time he could successfully condense it. The first step of condensing was exactly the same as condensing the space inside the jade pendant. Of course, what Lin Yi used was also the mantra he used to condense the space inside the jade pendant, not the mantra he used to condense the profound qi necklace. Because the mnemonic chant was too complicated, Lin Yi didn't have the confidence to learn it, nor did he want to try. Fortunately, the beginning of the condensation was very smooth. It was the same feeling as the first time Lin Yi condensed the space in the jade pendant. Lin Yi's hands kept condensing the forging fire, and from time to time, he also needed to use his hands to change the shape of the auxiliary materials, and then fuse them with the jade pendant. After repeating this several times and a certain amount of time, he finally reached the most important step, which was completely different from condensing the space inside the jade pendant. Because the space needed for the 5 profound qi inner elixirs was very small, it didn't take much time and materials. Previously, when Lin Yi was at home, it took him 3 days to condense the space inside the jade pendant, but now, it only took him less than a day to enter the second step. The second step was to fuse the profound qi inner elixirs into the space inside the jade pendant. Although Lin Yi had 7 profound qi inner elixirs, 1 was given by Gohuli's lion, 2 were obtained in the Wulonghao mountain range, 1 was given by the Qian mountain sect, 1 was given by the ghost, 1 was exchanged with a heaven stage cultivator in the cultivator's market, and the last one was picked up by the sky thunder pig in the heavenly elixir sect's trial. However, among them, the profound qi inner elixir given by the ghost was obviously very different from the other profound qi inner elixirs. Moreover, the ghost didn't let him use it, so it wasn't appropriate for Lin Yi to use it casually. As for the remaining 6, he could use them to make the profound qi necklace. However, Lin Yi only prepared 5, and kept the extra 1 first. Lin Yi was afraid that he would fail this time and lose 6 profound qi inner elixirs at once, so he kept 1 as a backup. If he succeeded, it wouldn't be too late to make another one in the future. This step was actually the most difficult one, because not only did he have to put the 5 profound qi inner elixirs into the space of the jade pendant, he had to fix them at a certain point in the space of the jade pendant, so that the 5 profound qi inner elixirs could form a cycle of 5 elements, and each of them could be fixed at its own supporting point in the space of the jade pendant, without any deviation at all. However, in fact, Linny had a great advantage. Other blacksmiths didn't have the same connection with the jade pendant as Linny did. That was to say, when a blacksmith put the profound chi inner elixir into the space of the jade pendant, it was completely based on his feeling and proficiency. Whether it could be successfully fixed at the supporting point or not depended entirely on luck. If it was unsuccessful, it would be a waste of an profound chi inner elixir. This profound chi inner elixir, which couldn't be fixed at the supporting point, couldn't be taken out of the space of the jade pendant, and could only be discarded. However, Linny was different. To Lin Yi's surprise, not only could he see the scene in the space of the jade pendant, but for the first time, Lin Yi could actually take out the profound chi inner elixir from the space of the jade pendant after it was not fixed at the supporting point. This was also because the way to refine the small space was the same as the way to refine the space of the jade pendant. Of course, Lin Yi could also use his consciousness to control the space of the jade pendant. In this way, Lin Yi's work was much easier. If he couldn't place it properly, he could place it again. Although it was a little slow, he succeeded every time. Lin Yi simply put the remaining sixth profound chi inner elixir on the supporting point of the fire attribute. Every time he added an profound chi inner elixir of a spirit beast, the probability of increasing defense and attack would be higher. When Lin Yi put the profound chi inner elixir on the supporting point of the fire attribute, it meant that when Lin Yi used the fire attribute martial arts, the probability of making the move more powerful would be higher, and the probability of defending against the fire attribute attack would also be higher. When the supporting points of the 5 elements were fixed, adding the profound chi inner elixir on any of the supporting points would improve the ability of the corresponding attribute. This made Lin Yi very excited. Unexpectedly, all the 6 profound chi inner elixirs were successfully integrated. 5 days were spent nervously in the refining process. Lin Yi was very nervous. He followed the instructions step by step and carried out the operation step by step. However, the heavens did not disappoint those who worked hard. Finally, on the evening of the 5th day, Lin Yi completed all the refining steps. Looking at the jade pendant in front of him, which had returned to its original appearance, Lin Yi also slowly put away the forging fire. The profound chi necklace was finally refined successfully. Chapter 3285. Previously, it was written in the instructions that this essence chi necklace had a 30% chance of increasing the power of defense and attack. However, after adding an essence chi Niden, it could increase the chance of fire attribute by 50%. In the future, adding an essence chi Niden would increase the chance by 20%, and so on. A 50% chance didn't necessarily mean that he'd be able to increase his attack and defense, but it was still much stronger than before, and Lin Yi was very satisfied. Lin Yi didn't bother testing the necklace. He hung it around his neck and walked out of the room. In these 5 days, no one had bothered Lin Yi, but Lin Yi was worried about Yang Qiqi the most. He didn't know how she was doing. In theory, Yang Qiqi's trip to the association shouldn't be dangerous, but who knew if he Lulu would do anything after that incident with the red conch? Fortunately, when Lin Yi came out of the room, he saw Yang Qiqi, Little Nine, Su Shirhan, and Qingyi chatting about something. When they saw Lin Yi come out, they shut their mouths at the same time. Evidently, the topic was related to Lin Yi. But Lin Yi didn't have the mood to gossip. He let out a breath of relief when he saw that Yang Qiqi was safe. Xiao Qi, you've been to the association? How was it? Yeah, I came back 2 days ago. Qiqi, on the other hand, was quite relaxed. The people from the association were quite surprised that I'm an Earth-class early-phase practitioner, but considering the special nature of my family, they didn't think too much about it. But I could tell that the elders were quite happy about it after all. I didn't need any training resources to get to Earth-class early phase. It wasn't easy at all. With talent like this, there's a chance for me to break through to Sky class. Lin Yi nodded. It seemed that there was a reason why Yang Qiqi was doing so well overseas. At least, from what Lin Yi saw, Yang Qiqi wasn't as useless as she was when he first met her. Perhaps Yang Qiqi's level of experience was different from his. As long as they didn't suspect you. No, they didn't. After all, I didn't hide my strength from them, so they were very happy. Chi-Chi shook her head. They understand me, and they even gave me a few chi-gathering pills as training resources. Oh? It seems that the Overseas Cultivators Association is quite generous. Linny could not help but sigh. The Overseas Cultivators Association treated their members very well. If it wasn't for their overbearing style, they could have been friends. However, Hiloadu's patriarchal style was difficult to accept. The Overseas Cultivators Association isn't a sect with a deep foundation. Everyone who joins the association is like a customer of the sect. If there's no benefit, why would we gather people together? Chi-Chi said. Everyone will only stay in the association if they get a taste of the sweetness. Linny couldn't help but nod after hearing that. Indeed, the Overseas Cultivators Association was more like a group of experts recruited by clans rather than a large sect that had disciples to pass on. An organization like this that was developed in a short period of time still had its flaws. Did you see Hiloadu this time? Linny asked. No, I heard that he's in isolation. He won't be coming out for a while, but this kind of thing doesn't need the chairman to do it. The elders can make the decision, Chi-Chi said. Linny was taken aback. He wanted to ask how Hiloadu was doing. After all, Linny left after setting up a trap, and he didn't know if Hiloadu would fall for it. He wanted to get some information about Hiloadu through Chi-Chi, but who would have thought that he'd be in isolation? What did that mean? Was the deal a success or a failure? What was he doing in isolation? But these were secrets that Linny couldn't tell Chi-Chi about. He could only let it go and continue helping Chi-Chi get to Earth-class late-phase peak. In actuality, Hiloadu didn't go into isolation at all. He was heavily injured, and he was recovering in a secret room. After all, what good could come out of a fight between two Sky-class late-phase peak masters? It was either one of them die or the other survive. The best outcome would be for both of them to be heavily injured, and this was the best-case scenario. After coming back, Hiloadu laid on his sickbed. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that something wasn't right. He wasn't an idiot. It was fine if he was impulsive at the time, but after thinking about it, there were a lot of suspicious points. Hiloadan thought about it again and again. There was no doubt that he had brought a suitcase of money with him. Not to mention that he had been carrying the suitcase. Even if the suitcase was around him, with his current strength, it would be impossible for him to take the money from the suitcase under his nose. As for swapping, that was even more impossible. Hiloadan also carefully looked at the suitcase after he came back, and there was no doubt that it was his. There was no possibility of swapping, but how could the money just disappear into thin air? What the hell? Plus, that Songsan orphanage was something Hiloadu had never heard of in his life. He really did think that Red Conch was trying to scam him with a fake account. But after thinking about it, he realized that Red Conch wasn't crazy. If they wanted to scam money, they could just scam someone else. Those drug dealers had money, so why would they scam him, the head of the association? Even an idiot would know that he wasn't someone to mess with, and this guy was using such a stupid method to scam him. It didn't seem possible. As far as Hiloaru was concerned, the money could be scammed any way they wanted. There was no need to get it from him. Besides, this wasn't a one-time deal, and they would have to work together again in the future. It wasn't like Red Conch hadn't seen money before. While Hiloadan realized that something was wrong, the general manager also realized that something was wrong. After all, he felt that there was no need for Hiloadan to put on such a show. He brought an empty box to trade, and then entered his account to transfer the money. Wasn't this just looking for trouble? What was the point of coming to Red Conch's headquarters and doing this kind of low-level scam? Did he think that he could get the drugs? The result was a lose-lose situation, and no one got the upper hand. So the CEO felt that unless Hiloaru had nothing better to do, he wouldn't do such a meaningless thing. Chapter 3286. However, after asking for a long time, it didn't seem to be done by Fanny. So, he thought of another very important person, Secretary Liu. However, when he called Secretary Lu over to interrogate him, he got a shocking news. Secretary Lu, during the time of the transaction between the general manager and He Luan, actually fainted in the bathroom. Secretary Lu didn't think that it was a big deal. He thought that he was too tired from work and fell asleep in the bathroom. He didn't think that he was plotted against because he didn't feel anything at all. Therefore, he didn't report it to the general manager immediately after it happened. Although the general manager didn't particularly believe Secretary Lu's words, when he retrieved the company's surveillance video that day, he found a shocking secret. In the video, there were actually two Secretary Lu, and the other one entered the company later, and he hid in the bathroom as soon as he came in. Later, the real Secretary Lu entered the bathroom. Although he didn't know what happened, soon after, Secretary Lu walked out of the bathroom, went straight upstairs, and went to the general manager's office. After that, it was what happened later. After Secretary Lu gave the laptop to He Luan, this Secretary Lu went downstairs again and entered the bathroom. Not long after, the Secretary Lu, who wore the company's uniform, walked out of the bathroom, then went downstairs and left the company. All of this showed that there were indeed two Secretary Lu, and the Secretary Lu who entered the office to help the general manager and president, he was probably the fake one. This discovery made the general manager a little speechless. It was really a great calculation, but he still failed miserably. The opponent completely took advantage of an unexpected loophole. He didn't expect that the opponent could turn into Secretary Lu, and it was exactly the same, so that he couldn't find any flaws. Of course, he didn't think of this at the time. If he thought of it, and looked at Linny carefully, he would definitely find some differences. After all, the appearance could be disguised, but there were still subtle differences in height and figure. This couldn't be made up for. The same was true for the voice. No matter how similar the disguise was, it was just a disguise. If one listened carefully, they would definitely find the difference. However, the general manager didn't think that Secretary Lu would be impersonated. Seeing this, the general manager knew that both Fanny and Secretary Lu were innocent. The two of them were also unwitting victims. The main culprit was that fake Secretary Lu who had appeared out of nowhere. Fanny, retrieve the company's surveillance footage from the past few days. Take a closer look and see if there are any suspicious characters. The general manager instructed Fanny. Secretary Lu, go take a look as well. See if you have any recollection of it. Yes, my boss, Fanny quickly replied. Secretary Lu also nodded in agreement. The two of them left the general manager's office and went to the surveillance room to check the video. However, in terms of suspicious characters, besides the Yiling, who came the day before, there were no other suspicious people. The others were basically old customers. They all had historical cooperation, so they were excluded. Only this Yiling's identity was extremely suspicious. He claimed to be the purchasing manager of the Buffon family's hotel group. In reality, there was no such person at all. Secretary Lu also had a very deep impression of him. Fanny, take a screenshot of Yiling and the person who impersonated me and compare them, Secretary Lu said. Okay, little Lu, are you suspecting this Yiling? Fanny quickly operated. Her computer skills were not bad. She easily took a screenshot of the two people's images. And yes, I suspect that this person is the person who impersonated me. He is the most suspicious. Secretary Lu nodded. Fanny took a screenshot of the two people's images. After comparing them, she realized that other than the difference in appearance, the two people were shockingly similar in terms of body and height. These two people were practically the same person. It's him. Secretary Lu slammed the table and stood up. He said with certainty. I'll report to the general manager now. Fanny quickly stood up and went to find the general manager. This was also a good opportunity to clear her name. Otherwise, although the general manager felt that it was someone else who did it, she and Secretary Lu would still be a little suspicious. Very soon, the general manager who received the news ran over. When he saw the comparison images on the computer screen, he frowned. He was now 100% sure that he had been tricked. However, What was Yiling's identity? Looking at Yiling's appearance, he should be Asian. President he of the Overseas Cultivators Association was also Asian. Then, could there be any connection between the two? It was no wonder that the general manager was suspicious. After all, this incident happened too coincidentally. This transaction with the Overseas Cultivators Association was only known by him, Fanny, Secretary Lu Tae, and a few other core people. Then, there was only He Luodan himself. This Yiling obviously knew the news in advance. On the first day, he came to survey the terrain. On the second day, when it was time for the transaction, he directly came to the general manager's office to do something. If this person wasn't He Luodan's man, even the general manager himself felt that things couldn't be so coincidental. "Give me the phone, I want to talk to He Luodan." Although the general manager's injury hadn't healed, after taking the recover pill, he was more or less recovered. He could still move around in the wheelchair, but it was a little inconvenient for him to take the phone. "Okay." Fanny quickly passed the phone to the general manager. At that moment, the general manager's only thought was to question He Luodan and ask him if he was the one behind this scene. The phone was quickly connected. He Luodan's angry voice came from the other side of the phone. "What do you want? What do you want? I can tell you that I have investigated the matter clearly. I have the surveillance video as proof. Don't say that this person wasn't sent by you. There is no such coincidence in this world." The general manager scolded him. "What are you talking about? Who was sent by me? What surveillance video? Are you crazy? Why, do you think that I wanted to cheat you of your drugs? Is there something wrong with me? Did I cheat you of your drugs?" He Luodan coldly snorted. Chapter 3287. Let's see. He Luodu's phone indicated that he had received an email, so he hung up the phone and opened the email. However, when He Luodu saw it, his expression instantly became incomparably horrified. "Linny? Why did this kid actually appear in the Red Conch headquarters? And on the day of the transaction, the secretary Lu that came was Lin Yi's impersonation?" This video had been clearly recorded by Fanny, so He Luodu didn't have to spend much effort at all. It was clear at a glance. However, He Luodu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Did the general manager treat Lin Yi as his own person? He Luodu dialed the general manager's phone number again. Before he could speak, the general manager questioned him. "How is it? Did you catch him red-handed? You didn't expect me to have such a strict recording here, and our analysis and reasoning are also very exquisite, right? Do you dare to say that this person isn't from your Overseas Cultivators Association?" "Wait a minute!" He Luodu interrupted the general manager's words impatiently, and said coldly. "First of all, I want to state one thing. I know this person, but he is definitely not from our Overseas Cultivators Association." "You know him? Not from your Overseas Cultivators Association?" The general manager snorted. "Can't you say something more convincing?" "Don't interrupt me first. What I want to say is that this person is not only your enemy, but also mine. His name is Lin Yi, and he once killed an elder of our Overseas Cultivators Association. A few days ago, he was chased by our Overseas Cultivators Association. This isn't a secret. You can ask around and you will know the details." Nuclear Luodu said. "Really?" The general manager was slightly stunned. The name Lin Yi seemed a bit familiar. Where did I hear it before? "Of course it's true, and I understand what you mean. Don't you think that I sent someone to scout ahead and then do some tricks to cheat you of your drugs?" He Luodu asked. "Yes, why?" The general manager was slightly stunned. "Then why do I have to do this? I can just carry the empty box and change my account. Why do I need to send another person? Isn't it unnecessary? Moreover, this is simply not feasible," He Luodan said. "Do you think I need to do this?" "This?" The general manager thought about it. What He Luodan said was very reasonable. He had previously made a mistake, thinking that Yiling was He Luodan's man. But now that he thought about it carefully, He Luodan did not need to do that. Moreover, Whether Yiling's name was Lin Yi or not, whether he was an enemy of the Overseas Cultivators Association, the general managers only needed to investigate, and the truth would soon be revealed. All right, I'll go and investigate. If this matter is really a misunderstanding, then I'll give you the drugs in this transaction as an apology. The general manager was straightforward. After all, the trading site was his company. If there was a problem, it could only be his own problem. He could still afford to lose. Oh? Thank you very much. I'll be waiting for your good news. He Luodan didn't expect the general manager to be this easygoing. It surprised him a little, and his heavy heart felt a lot better now. Also, what made him feel relieved was that Lin Yi and Yang Qiqi really had nothing to do with each other. Lin Yi didn't even look for Yang Qiqi. Instead, he escaped to Ruilei de town, and somehow heard about the deal between He Luodan and Red Conches, and went to cause trouble. He Luodan didn't think that Lin Yi was after Red Conches. He thought that Lin Yi was after him. After all, he had just started a feud with Lin Yi, and no matter how he thought about it, Lin Yi was after him. How could it be so coincidental? Therefore, thinking of this, He Luta felt a little apologetic. Although the box of money was lost in the Red Conch group, and the transfer was also a mistake, it wasn't the Red Conch group's fault. This way, he might have lost 2 portions of money and gotten 1 portion of drugs. But it was a very balanced situation. After all, Red Conches was dragged into this mess because of Lin Yi. After the general manager hung up, he told Fanny to investigate Lin Yi's case. This was quite easy to investigate. Fanny called Duffing Bro, the person in charge of the domestic headquarters. Duffing, it's Fanny, Fanny said after picking up. Ah, it's Assistant Fanny. Hello, what can I do for you? Duffing Bro was Lin Yi's man, but he was still very respectful towards Fanny on the surface. After all, Fanny was his direct superior. It's like this, there's a person called Lin Yi. Do you know him? Fanny got straight to the point. Lin Yi? I know him. I've reported this person to the headquarters before. He's the boss behind Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, and advisor Zhuge had a conflict with him before. He killed him. You told me not to mess with strong domestic practitioners like him. Duffing Bro didn't know what Fanny was talking about, and why she was asking about Lin Yi, but he didn't dare to say anything. Oh? Lin Yi. It's him? Fanny was startled. She didn't expect Lin Yi to be Red Conch's enemy. He was the one who killed advisor Zhuge. Jiang Wen also said that Red Conches and the Fire Wolves had a deep grudge with Lin Yi. All right, I got it. Fanny didn't ask any more questions. It was enough that she knew who Lin Yi was. He was an unconventional practitioner in Huaxia, and she didn't need to ask to know that he had nothing to do with the association. He Luoyan wasn't stupid enough to send a practitioner to cause trouble in Huaxia. If people found out about this, they'd definitely boycott him. He'd be digging his own grave. So, after Fanny heard about this, she immediately went to the general manager and told him about the situation. What? Fuck, it's that Lin Yi again? The general manager found the name familiar. Now, he finally remembered who Lin Yi was. So this kid was one of Red Conch's enemies. Lin Yi, playing such a trick, this kid is really cunning. In that case, this kid is here to cause trouble for our Red Conch headquarters? Very likely. Fanny nodded and guessed. Chapter 3288. Yeah, what should we do now? Issue a wanted order to kill Lin Yi. Fanny thought about it and asked. That's definitely not possible. Even the Overseas Cultivators Association can't do anything about Lin Yi. Where can we find Lin Yi? Forget it, let's not get involved in this matter. With Daofeng's ability, going to trouble Lin Yi is equivalent to courting death. The general manager waved his hand and said, Then this matter. Let's just let it go. Fanny was a little unwilling to be fooled. Let's forget it for the time being. The general manager shook his head and said, Our current business is only drug trafficking. Our strength is not as good as the Fire Wolf gang. Let's report this matter truthfully to the higher-ups and let the behind-the-scenes boss decide. You mean that, Miss Lon? Fanny was surprised and her face changed slightly. The general manager nodded slowly. Some things were beyond the scope of his decision. Naturally, he wouldn't force himself. Fanny was very tactful. She knew that when the general manager called Miss Lon, she'd better avoid it. This was the rule of the Red Conch. After Fanny left, the general manager dialed Miss Lan's phone. What's the matter? Miss Lon quickly picked up the phone. It's like this. The general manager truthfully reported the matter of Lin Yi and he looked to Miss Lon. Lin Yi? I understand. Miss Lon frowned. It was Lin Yi again. This guy really knew how to cause trouble. However, Miss Lan's mind wasn't on Lin Yi. In fact, for her, the Fire Wolf Gang and the Red Conch were just byproducts. Her ultimate goal was to find a person. This was the most important thing. Hearing that Miss Lon didn't make any comments and replies on this matter, the general manager didn't dare to ask more. After hanging up the phone, he dialed He-Luta's phone again. President He, I'm sorry. I have already investigated. This matter was indeed done by that Lin Yi, so my previous promise is valid. I will send the drugs over, the general manager said. In fact, the general manager already felt that he owed a lot, but He-Luta didn't explain this matter, so he pretended not to know. Oh? Okay, thank you very much. Both of them had their own ulterior motives. Both of them thought that Lin Yi was targeting them, so they didn't hesitate on this matter. They both thought that they had taken advantage of him. Of course, it was not that the two did not want to seek revenge on Lin Yi, but they did not have the opportunity for the time being. Miss Lon, who was behind the scenes of the general manager, did not say anything, and He-Luta was now seriously injured. If he wanted revenge, he could only choose the right time. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was waiting for Chi-Chi's chi-gathering pill after crafting the necklace. Chi-Chi didn't go to the association right away. She waited for half a month before appearing at the association again. This time, young Chi-Chi appeared as an Earth-class late-phase peak. Be it the elders of the association or Chairman He, both of them were shocked. They never realized that young Chi-Chi was a practitioner genius. Young Chi-Chi, you're already an Earth-class late-phase peak? He-Luta looked at Chi-Chi, a little shocked. He was glad that he didn't make things difficult for Chi-Chi because of Lin Yi. Otherwise, Chi-Chi would have left the association already. Putting aside the question of whether or not Chi-Chi's background had the ability to get her to leave, Chi-Chi's family was huge overseas, different from Tang Yuqi's. If Chi-Chi wanted to leave, President He wouldn't be able to treat her like Tang Yuqi. Plus, He-Luta had received some news from his brother, the Xianqian ancestor. Chi-Chi's sister, Little Nine, could very well be an Earth element inheritor called Tu Ran Ran. After all, the Xianqian ancestor was the one in charge of the inheritors and the Sky-class island project. Even if the Yellow Earth sect was a sect in the West, they couldn't avoid the Xianqian ancestor if they wanted to participate in the Sky-class island project. They could only tell him about the inheritors. And that was how the news reached He-Luta's ears. He had been in contact with the Xianqian ancestor for the past few days, and he mentioned Lin Yi as well. But the elder told him not to worry, that someone would take care of Lin Yi when he got back. Yes, Chairman He. Chi-Chi nodded politely. Elder Wang, go get a great recovery pill and give it to Chi-Chi. This is the tradition of the association. Chi-Chi, don't reject it, the chairman said to Elder Wang before turning to Chi-Chi. Thank you very much, President He, Chi-Chi said happily. Chi-Chi, I heard that your sister, Little Nine, is the inheritor of the Yellow Earth sect? He-Luta asked. Chi-Chi's heart skipped a beat. She didn't expect He-Luta to know about this, but she didn't want to hide it. After all, exposing Little Nine's identity would only benefit her. No matter how strong He-Luta was, he wouldn't dare go against the entire ancient world. The identity of Little Nine's inheritor was like a protective talisman. Whoever dared to touch Little Nine would be the entire ancient world's enemy. Which one of those Sky-class late-phase peak and full-circle peak didn't want to participate in the Sky-class island project and ascend to Sky-class strength? Yes, she's the long-lost sister of the Yellow Earth Sect's young master, Tu Ba Wang. Chi-Chi nodded. Haha, you and her are both cultivation geniuses. But Chi-Chi, how come I didn't see it before? How did you train so fast? Did you have some sort of miracle? He looked her asked tentatively. Of course, he wasn't suspecting Chi-Chi. He just wanted to know if she had some sort of secret. President, the truth is that I didn't cultivate internal martial arts in the past because I couldn't calm my heart. You also know that internal martial arts cultivation is different from external martial arts cultivation. One is quiet, and the other is active. In the past, because of little Nine's matter, I went around looking for medicine, wanting to cure her illness, so I couldn't cultivate in peace. But now, her problem has been solved, so I can cultivate at home. Chi-Chi said. But because of the uniqueness of the assassin group, we're not allowed to reveal our strength to the outside world. It's just that I was stuck at a bottleneck before, and I trusted the association, that's why I told them. Chapter 3289. Yes, Chairman. Chi-Chi nodded. Elder Wang, on the other hand, had already retrieved the chi-gathering pill. He gave it to Chi-Chi and left. Chi-Chi returned to Island X without a hitch. Even she didn't expect things to go this smoothly, but it was probably because of little Nine's identity that Luo didn't dare to suspect her. Lin Yi didn't think that Chi-Chi would get things done this quickly. Seeing how easily Chi-Chi handed the chi-gathering pill to him, Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh. Chi-Chi's feelings towards him were unreserved. This chi-gathering pill was a very important pill for practitioners, but Chi-Chi didn't hesitate at all. She gave it to him like it was a normal thing. Chi-Chi, you don't want to ascend to Sky Class? Lin Yi sighed and asked after taking the chi-gathering pill. I want to, but with Lin Yi bro here, I don't need this pill. It'll be a waste if I eat it. Chi-Chi shook her head. Alright, Chi-Chi, but you have to eat the next one. Otherwise, Luo might get suspicious, Lin Yi reminded. It's fine, Luo won't dare do anything to me now. Yang Chi-Chi waved her hand and told him about Lil Jiu. Oh? Lin Yi paused. The fact that little Nine was an Earth Affinity inheritor was rare even in the ancient world of China. How did Luo, the chairman of the Practitioners Association, know about it? Other than the people of the Yellow Earth sect, only the Xianqian ancestor knew about it. Could it be that Luo was connected to the Xianqian ancestor? But no matter what, this wasn't bad news at all. He'd planned on leaving a chi-gathering pill for Chi-Chi no matter what, but Chi-Chi's face changed. But now, Lin Yi might be able to take the second pill for himself. Even if Chi-Chi hadn't broken through, as long as Xiao Jiu was here, Luoran wouldn't dare do anything to her. But that was just Lin Yi's thought. It was better to be safe than sorry. If he could get through this, he wouldn't need Chi-Chi's chi-gathering pill. As long as he could rebuild his name in the ancient world, he wouldn't need Chi-Chi's chi-gathering pills. Kong Ningming's pills would come to him. Thinking of this, Lin Yi said, If that's the case, then I'll go into seclusion and refine this chi-gathering pill first. Now, Lin Yi had to do his best to increase his strength in order to deal with the predicament he would face when he returned to the ancient era. Lin Yi had to go and intimidate them again. Chi-Chi, Jiu, Shirhan, and Qingyi all knew about Lin Yi's current situation. Naturally, they wouldn't say anything. That day, Lin Yi entered her guest room again to take the chi-gathering pill. Not bad. The pill in Lin Yi's hand had a medicinal aroma. It was a chi-gathering pill, but from the looks of it, the quality wasn't as good as the one Lin Yi took last time. But it was no wonder that the one Lin Yi took last time was made by Li Ju from the God of Dan chapter. And this pill, if it wasn't from the Sky Elixir sect, then it was from their previous stock. It definitely wasn't as good as Zhang Liju's. But it was good enough that he had one. He wasn't picky. Anyway, the quality of the chi-gathering pill only mattered when used to break the barrier. A good quality pill would increase the success rate, but an experienced pill wouldn't make any difference in the end. Lin Yi had the experience of taking a chi-gathering pill before, so he wasn't too nervous. After preparing the pill, he took a deep breath and slowly put it in his mouth, swallowing it. Immediately after, a warm current flowed from Lin Yi's abdomen to his whole body, and it was as if his meridians were on fire. This feeling was something Lin Yi had experienced before. It was painful, but Lin Yi knew that this was a path he had to go through, and so he didn't try to resist it. He just let it happen, gritting his teeth and waiting for it to happen. After that, the burning sensation intensified, and Lin Yi felt that not only his meridians, but his whole body was on fire. But even so, Lin Yi gritted his teeth and persevered. This feeling was very familiar to Lin Yi. It was the same feeling he had the last time he took a chi-gathering pill. The more painful it was, the more it was a sign of a breakthrough. The energy released by the chi-gathering pill flowed continuously from Lin Yi's abdomen into Lin Yi's meridians. And as time passed, Lin Yi could feel the energy in his meridians increasing. The huge amount of energy was rushing at Lin Yi's meridians, as if it wanted to expand and expand them. On Lin Yi's forehead, beads of sweat rolled down continuously. This painful feeling was getting stronger and stronger, but in Lin Yi's heart, he was very excited. After all, if he didn't feel this way, Lin Yi would be crying. It wasn't easy to get a chi-gathering pill, but it didn't have any effect. If that happened, Lin Yi would have the heart to die. As Lin Yi's pain deepened, the spiritual energy in the air gathered and circled above Lin Yi's head, forming an extremely weak vortex. It formed a resonance with the true energy in Lin Yi's body, and it circulated rapidly around Lin Yi's body. The faster it spun, the faster Lin Yi's body temperature rose. Finally, there was a loud bang in Lin Yi's ears, and his whole body trembled. His meridians seemed to explode in an instant, and at this moment, Lin Yi knew that he had broken through. Heaven Middle Stage. At this moment, Lin Yi had the strength of Heaven Middle Stage. It could be said that Lin Yi was one step closer to that peak. Heaven Rank Middle Stage was only 4 stages away from the peak of Heaven Rank Late Stage. Thinking about the journey from Golden Stage to now, Lin Yi was filled with emotion. It was only a short year, but it felt like a lifetime. In this year, too many things had happened, and he had too many responsibilities on his shoulders. These responsibilities constantly urged Lin Yi to work hard. Fortunately, this chi-gathering pill allowed Lin Yi to smoothly level up and break through, and the current Lin Yi, with the essence necklace, could probably kill an expert with the strength of the peak of Heaven Late Stage, right? Chapter 3290. All this time, Lin Yi had been racing against time, and he managed to confuse a lot of people. Of course, Lin Yi had successfully broken through to Sky Class mid-phase, and it was time to go back. Hiding outside wasn't the way to go, and without any elixirs, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to break through again. On this day, Lin Yi said goodbye to Qiqi and Jiu, bringing Shirhan and Qingyi back. But in the time Lin Yi was gone, something big happened in the ancient level, and it was all about the Palace of Darkness. But because of how big the incident with Lin Yi was, not many people paid attention to the Palace of Darkness. Qibing had been living a hard life these days. Not only did he have to clean the toilets with one arm, but Meng Yao made it worse, pushing all kinds of dirty work onto his shoulders. Now, Qibing had become the executioner of the Palace of Darkness, feeding the cows and goats. When the disciples were on duty, Qibing could be seen everywhere. He didn't want to do it, but he had no choice. The Palace of Darkness had become Meng Yao's word now, and as long as her actions didn't harm the Palace of Darkness, the Grand Elder wouldn't object. Qibing's backer, Elder Black, had lost his power as well, and he couldn't even protect himself. How could he care about Qibing? Qibing felt so wronged. Just thinking about it made him angry, but there was nothing he could do. In his heart, he was planning to go to the Sky Elixir sect, but he couldn't just go as he pleased. Although Kang Mingming had agreed, he had to show some sincerity if he wanted to, right? If he just went, he wouldn't have any position in the Sky Elixir sect. He might just end up as a disciple, and it wouldn't be much better than being in the Palace of Darkness. He wanted to stand out and get revenge on that bitch, Lin Yi and Meng Yao, so he needed strength. A man couldn't be without strength, but without status, where would strength come from? Qibing basically had no chance of leveling up in the Palace of Darkness anymore, unless Meng Yao died or something happened to him. Just when Zhao Qibing was racking his brains, unable to find a reason to surrender and offer benefits, a phone call made him ecstatic. "Hello, is that Zhao Qibing? I'm Kong Ming. Kong Ming's arrogant voice came from the other side of the phone. Back then, Kong Ming was just a playboy from an ordinary family that was not even an aristocratic family. However, he became an elder of the Heavenly Elixir sect, one of the largest sects in the ancient times. Of course, he did not know that Kong Ming was the son-in-law of Xianqian ancestor. If he knew, he would be even more envious. "It's me, Elder Kong, are you looking for me?" Qibing said respectfully. "It's like this. Let me ask you something. Is Chu Mingyao really powerful in the Palace of Darkness now?" The Xianqian ancestor knew a little about the Palace of Darkness. During this period of time, the Xianqian ancestor was a little anxious. This Lin Yi hid abroad and wouldn't come back. Those who went to cause trouble for the Yellow Spring sect also stopped. The Xianqian ancestor didn't know where to start if he wanted to deal with Lin Yi. But it was impossible to let Lin Yi go just like that. Putting aside the fact that Lin Yi made little 11 into this state, just the conflict from before was enough for him to not let him go so easily. So, the Xianqian ancestor wanted to force Lin Yi back and see how the sects that were going to cause trouble for Lin Yi would react. If they didn't cause trouble for Lin Yi, then it meant that there was something wrong with what happened before. If they did cause trouble for Lin Yi, then the Xianqian ancestor could just sit back and watch the fire burn. However, no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't find a suitable reason. However, Kong Ming's words enlightened the Xianqian ancestor. Kong Ming was up to no good. He suddenly thought of a good idea, and that was to get Chu Mingyao. As Kong Ming's status rose, the Xianqian ancestor also told some secrets to Kong Ming, such as the Heaven-class island plan. At this moment, Kong Ming also knew that the young master of the Heaven Elixir sect wanted to take in wives and concubines. He wanted to take Bingtang as his wife. It was nothing more than setting this status in advance to prevent the future Heaven-class island plan from affecting the plan by losing his virginity. The wife and concubine of the Heaven Elixir sect's young master was equivalent to the young master's woman. She could temporarily keep her virginity. So, Kong Ming suggested to let the young master of the Heaven Elixir sect go to the Dark Night Palace to propose. After all, the Xianqian ancestor had to do these things in the next few years. When Chu Mingyao was in trouble, how could Lin Yi just sit and watch? This way, Lin Yi would definitely return to his country, and his enemies would come to his door. Even if his enemies didn't do anything, the Xianqian ancestor could hint to some others to kill Lin Yi in the Dark Night Palace. Of course, the premise of all this was built on the premise that Lin Yi had to show up. That was why there was the scene of Kong Ming calling Zhao Qibing. "Ah, it's like this for now." Zhao Qibing nodded and said, "Now, in the Dark Night Palace, Chu Mingyao's words have enormous weight. Even the Grand Elder doesn't object to it." "I see." Kong Ming frowned. What if the Heaven Elixir sect went to propose and the Grand Elder stopped them? One had to know that the Grand Elder's temper was bad and stubborn. If she stood on Chu Mingyao's side, then things would be a little difficult. Just like Ice Palace's Bingtang. The Ice Palace had the power to be strong, and if Bingtang didn't agree, the Xianqian ancestor couldn't do anything. They couldn't let the Heaven Elixir sect attack the Ice Palace, could they? That wasn't realistic. Luckily, Bingtang knew that she had to be a virgin in order to start the Heaven-class island plan. The Ice Palace was a branch of the Five Elements sect, so the ancestral teachings definitely said this. So, he wasn't worried that Bingtang would mess around. It was the same for the Snow Valley, but what made the Xianqian ancestor unhappy was that the Ice Palace and Snow Valley actually changed the inheritors to Lin Yi's first and second wives. What a scam. Even if they were virgins now, there would definitely be resistance when the plan was carried out. This resistance was Lin Yi, so in the eyes of the Xianqian ancestor, Lin Yi had to die. But because of the wood element inheritor on Boss Bai's side, the Xianqian ancestor didn't touch Lin Yi. Chapter 3291. And Kong Ming was his son-in-law. Even if Boss Bai was angry, he wouldn't really do anything to Kong Mingming. It would just leave a knot in Boss Bai's heart. What's wrong? What's wrong? Qibing felt that Kong Mingming's tone was a little irritated, so he asked curiously. Nothing. But Qibing, I have a mission for you. If you do it well, I can recommend you to come to our Sky Elixir sect. I can't promise you the position of an elder, but you can be a deacon, Kong Mingming said. Ah? Really? That's great. Qibing was overjoyed. Elder Kong, tell me, what do you need me to do? Don't worry, I'll do my best to complete the mission. It's nothing much. In a few days, something might happen in your Palace of Darkness. You just need to report the reaction of Grand Elder and Meng Yao to me. You don't need to do or ask about anything else, Kong Mingming said. Is that so? All right, I understand. Qibing quickly nodded in response. Chapter 3292. Ah? The disciple was startled. He was about to question Kong Xiaoming when he saw the Heavenly Elixir Sect's Elder's token. He jumped in fright and quickly changed his words. Please wait for a moment, I'll go and report. Humph! What are you waiting for? Kong Xiaoming represented the Heavenly Elixir Sect, a first-rate sect in the ancient times. Because of his high status, he didn't care about the disciple of the Dark Palace. Of course, the disciple didn't dare say anything. Who told them to be weaker than the Sky Palace? This was the situation that had been in place for thousands of years. The Dark Palace never had any strong characters, and even if they had a Sky-class late-phase peak, it was just one. They couldn't compare to the Sky Elixir sect. The disciple quickly returned and reported to Chu Mengyao and the Grand Elder. If it was in the past, these disciples definitely wouldn't report to the Palace Master. Yuana's Palace Master was just a title. Everyone knew that her words weren't as effective as a normal elder's. But now, it was different. Mengyao was the rightful Palace Master of the Dark Palace, and her position wasn't lower than the Grand Elder's. Naturally, they would report to her. Kong Mingming is here? Mengyao was in the middle of practicing when she heard the disciple's report. She frowned. This Kong Mingming was an old acquaintance, but after he became strong, Mengyao didn't have much contact with him anymore. Why would he suddenly visit the Dark Palace? Could it be because of Linny? These days, Mengyao knew about the rumors about Linny as well. As the Palace Master of the Dark Palace, it was much easier for her to know about these things than Tang Yun and Xiao Xiao. Her personality was fundamentally different from Tang Yun and Xiao Xiao. She was a young miss, and although she didn't manage a company, she had seen and heard about it since she was young. She had the temperament of a leader, and that was how she established her position in the Dark Palace. As for Tang Yun, on the one hand, it was because of her personality. On the other hand, it was because she had stayed here to exchange for Lin Yi's life. It was reasonable for the Xuegu to restrict her and prevent her from interacting with Lin Yi. As for the Ice Palace, Xiao Xiao was a strong person as well, similar to Yushu, but there was an even stronger palace master, Bingtang. Bingtang had always looked down on Lin Yi, and wanted to see how Lin Yi was going to deal with him if he got into trouble. In fact, Bingtang was conflicted because of that little mistress. As Lin Yi got stronger, she didn't know how she should face Lin Yi. Did she really have to be this little mistress for him? Going from Xiao Xiao's senior sister to her sister? And so, Bingtang locked down all information related to Lin Yi. Her control over the Ice Palace was no less than Mengyao's, so naturally, Xiao Xiao wouldn't know about this. But even if Mengyao was a bit worried after hearing the rumors, she still trusted Lin Yi. This trust was probably formed from living with Lin Yi for a long time. As far as Mengyao was concerned, no matter how difficult it was, no matter how dangerous it was, Lin Yi would be able to deal with it. And no matter what trouble Mengyao ran into, no matter how strong the enemy was, Lin Yi would always be there to protect her. Lin Yi was her protector. Because of her unconditional trust in Lin Yi, Mengyao didn't think that Lin Yi was hiding out of the country. If he wanted to hide, wouldn't it be better to hide in West Star Mountain? With air good in there, whoever came would die. Why would he need to leave the country? and so Lin Yi must have other things he wanted to do. The mist still believed that Lin Yi was the strongest. Just as she was thinking about why Kong Mingming was here, the Grand Elder walked in. Evidently, she'd received a report from a disciple, and was here to discuss a plan with Meng Yao. Yao Yao, are you training? The Grand Elder asked in a pleasant tone. No, Grand Elder, I just received a report from a disciple guarding the door. He said that Kong Mingming from the Sky Elixir sect is here. Meng Yao said. Yeah, that's why I'm here. Yao Yao, what do you think Kong Mingming is here for? The Grand Elder asked. I'm not sure, I'm not familiar with him, but he knows Lin Yi. Meng Yao said honestly. The Grand Elder couldn't help but frown when she heard Lin Yi's name. To be honest, the Grand Elder didn't think highly of Lin Yi, especially with the recent news from the ancient level. It made the Grand Elder think that Lin Yi was someone who only knew how to show off, but didn't have any real strength. So now that she heard that this might have something to do with Lin Yi, she said unhappily. Don't tell me that Lin Yi's real strength was exposed, and he's here to cause you trouble? After all, you were really close with Lin Yi. Yao Yao, why don't you tell him later that you've cut off all contact with Lin Yi? What do you think? I've always said that Lin Yi kid isn't reliable. He's just a solo practitioner, how can he be that strong? Now that he's exposed, his enemies are probably coming for revenge. However, the Grand Elder suddenly noticed that Meng Yao's face was very dark, and she couldn't help but stop talking. She wasn't afraid of Lin Yi, but she was afraid that Meng Yao would be unhappy. Grand Elder, Lin Yi isn't as strong as the rumors say. I hope you won't slander him in the future, Meng Yao said seriously. Forget it, I'm doing this for your own good. Yao Yao, if Lin Yi is really that strong, why isn't he back yet? Why is he hiding abroad? The Grand Elder wasn't convinced. She didn't know what Lin Yi did to Meng Yao, but she was still on Lin Yi's side at a time like this. Lin Yi has his own business. He doesn't need to tell anyone where he's going, does he? What others say is their business, Meng Yao explained. All right, let's go meet Kong Mingming first. Let's see what he's here for. The Grand Elder didn't want her relationship with Meng Yao to be affected by a solo practitioner like Lin Yi, so she didn't mention Lin Yi again. But to be honest, she didn't think much of Lin Yi. Chapter 3293. Meng Yao already knew the Grand Elder's temper, and so she kept the balance between the two of them, not touching his bottom line. The Grand Elder, on the other hand, wanted to use Meng Yao to revitalize the Palace of Darkness, so naturally he wouldn't touch her bottom line. The two of them came to the Palace of Darkness guest room, where Kong Mingming and Xiao Yi were invited in as well. Kong Mingming was leisurely drinking tea, not even standing up to welcome the Grand Elder and Meng Yao. Meng Yao didn't think much of Kong Mingming, but when she saw Xiao Yi beside Kong Mingming, her face changed. Others might not recognize Xiao Yi, but she did. He was the one who'd hurt Lin Yi. Xin Yan still had a picture of him in her phone, and she'd even told Meng Yao to be careful of this person. But why was Kong Zhaoming hanging out with this person? What was his relationship with Kong Mingming? Kong Mingming from the Sky Elixir sect was hard enough to deal with, but he'd brought someone this strong with him. It gave Meng Yao a headache. Xiao Yi and Lin Yi had a deep grudge. From the first time they fought over Han Jingjing, to the second time because of Sun Jingyi, when Lin Yi stole Xiao Yi's sky-class weapon, the two were as incompatible as fire and water. Elder Kong, you two sure are arrogant, aren't you? You came to the Palace of Darkness, and didn't even stand up to welcome me and Palace Master Chu? The Palace of Darkness doesn't welcome rude guests like you. Kong Mingming and Xiao Yi's actions infuriated the Grand Elder. This was a slap to the face of the Palace of Darkness. The Grand Elder cared about the palace's reputation the most, and these two's actions had crossed his bottom line. You can insult the Grand Elder himself, you can insult the disciples of the Palace of Darkness, but you can't insult the rules of the Palace of Darkness. Is that so? Why don't I feel that way? Please, have a seat. Kong Mingming did not seem to understand the meaning of the Grand Elder. He still pointed to the seat not far away and said casually, You. The Great Elder snorted coldly, revealing his peak heaven rank late phase strength. From the Grand Elder's perspective, Kong Ming was just an early stage heaven alchemist. He didn't have much power. He wanted to scare him and let him know that this was the Dark Knight Palace, not the Heavenly Elixir sect. Humph! Little One snorted coldly, and suddenly revealed his peak heaven late stage great circle strength, shocking the Supreme Elder. He looked at Kong Ming's follower in disbelief. You! The Great Elder was a little shocked. She never thought that Kong Ming's follower would be so powerful. It should be known that in the entire ancient times, the number of experts who had the strength of the great perfection of the late stage of heaven rank could be counted on one's fingers. Who was this person? Little One looked at the Grand Elder's shocked face and smiled proudly. This was the effect he wanted. We have the right to be proud of coming here. Kong Jiaoming was feeling great as well. Having a bodyguard like this was the best thing he could do. He looked at the Grand Elder's face and was delighted. Grand Elder, who are you trying to scare? Little One, right? Aren't you going to show off your heaven-class weapon as well? Meng Yao wasn't afraid at all. She only looked at Little One coldly. The reason why she dared to talk to Little One like this was because of her special identity. She was a metal element inheritor. If Little One dared to hurt her, then he would be going against the entire ancient sect. Plus, Meng Yao knew more inside information. She knew from Lenny that the Inheritor Plan and the Heaven-class Island Plan were led by the Xiantian ancestor. Since that was the case, as the disciple of the Xiantian ancestor, Little One wouldn't hurt Meng Yao. He wouldn't be able to explain himself when he went back. That was why Meng Yao was so arrogant and dared to mock him. As expected, Little One's face froze and his old face turned red. His heaven-class weapon had been taken away by Lin Yi, and he still hadn't returned it. This was a pain in his heart. Being directly pointed out by Meng Yao made him feel embarrassed. Okay, Junior Brother Kong, let's get down to business. 5 Elements Sect, Xiantian Ancestor's first disciple, Meng Yao said to the shocked Grand Elder, directly pointing out Little One's identity. After hearing this, the Grand Elder's face changed slightly, and he couldn't help but frown. 5 Elements Sect? What are you doing here? Nothing, I'm just here to accompany Junior Brother Kong. Little One pointed at Kong Ming and said, Kong Ming? Aren't you an elder of the Heavenly Elixir sect? When did you become the disciple of the Xiantian ancestor? Meng Yao asked. Haha, I'm not only the disciple of the Xiantian ancestor, I'm also his son-in-law. Kong Ming laughed and said, Okay, let's not talk about this. Palace Master Meng Yao, this time I'm here on behalf of our Heavenly Elixir sect's young master, Silkworm Change, to propose marriage to you. Propose marriage? What marriage? Meng Yao was slightly taken aback. Our young master Tian has taken a fancy to Miss Chu, and is preparing to take Miss Chu as a concubine. How about it, Miss Chu? If you have no objections, let's settle this matter. From now on, you will be young Master Tian's woman. Kong Ming said to himself, as if this matter had already been decided by the Heavenly Elixir sect. Kong Ming, what do you mean by this? Is there something wrong with you? Meng Yao's face darkened, and her eyes turned cold. This Kong Ming really didn't have any good intentions. He came here to cause trouble. Marry Silkworm Change? Didn't he know that she liked Lin Yi? But he probably knew, and he came here only because he saw that Lin Yi's strength wasn't good enough, so he came to cause trouble. Elder Kong, please leave. Your Heavenly Elixir sect is a big family, and our Palace of Darkness can't afford it. The Grand Elder also had a lot of opinions about the Heavenly Elixir sect. Although it could be said that Yuan broke off the engagement first, these years after the engagement, the Heavenly Elixir sect had been secretly suppressing the Palace of Darkness. This made the Grand Elder hate the Heavenly Elixir sect a long time ago. How could he let Meng Yao marry them? Chapter 3294. It could be said that the Grand Elder did this to cultivate an inheritor for the Dark Palace. But now that the Dark Palace already had an inheritor, they would have a place in the future Heaven-class Island plan. They would have the right to speak and wouldn't need to marry someone else. So, the Grand Elder rejected it right away. Great Elder, you'd better think carefully before you speak. It's Miss Chu's fortune that our young master has taken a liking to her. Could it be that the Dark Palace wishes to go against the Heavenly Elixir sect? Kang Xiaoming heard the Great Elder's rejection and felt a little embarrassed. Although he guessed that there was an 80% chance that the Great Elder would reject, he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. But now, it was completely shattered. Shall you right? The matters of the Palace of Darkness were all decided by Mr. Yang back then. If you think you can go against Mr. Yang, then do as you please. The Grand Elder turned to look at Little One and said slowly, Mr. Yang? Shaoi paused. Mr. Yang is one of the Vajra double fiends. If you don't know, you can go back and ask your master, Patriarch Xianqian. He will definitely know. The Supreme Elder said. Back then, why didn't Mr. Yang kill him? You. Little Yi had naturally heard of the reputation of the Vajra double evils. Although the Vajra double evils did not find the Five Elements sect back then, the news still spread, causing everyone in the Five Elements sect to feel threatened. Now that the Supreme Elder suddenly mentioned it, Little Yi was shocked. The Dark Palace was related to the Killer Kong duo. Was it true? This old woman wasn't just scaring people, was she? Why hadn't he heard of it before? This old woman must be scaring people. The Killer Kong duo had disappeared for so many years. How could they be related to the Dark Palace? If they were, would the Dark Palace be in such a miserable state? Elder Kong, if you don't believe me, you can go back and ask your ninth elder. He knew about it back then too. Oh, but a few of them were taken away by the Killer Kong duo. He should have been promoted by now. His position must be higher than yours. The Grand Elder said faintly. Ahem. Let's not talk about this. I'm here mainly to pass on this message. Of course, the one making the final decision is still your Palace of Darkness. We won't interfere. Kang Mingming had also heard about the Vajra double spirits, but he had never experienced it. Therefore, he was not afraid of these two legendary figures. He did not want to let the young man argue with the Grand Elder again, so he said directly, Think about it. There's no need to think about it. The Palace of Darkness will not agree to it. Please leave. The Great Elder rejected them directly. Actually, we have good intentions. If Grand Elder doesn't agree, just pretend that I didn't say anything. Kang Mingming shrugged and said helplessly. Good intentions? You call that good intentions? Meng Yao retorted coldly. Doesn't the Heavenly Elixir sect think that the Dark Palace is weak and doesn't have any backing? If Miss Chu marries young Master Tian, then our sects will be in-laws. If the Dark Palace needs anything in the future, the Heavenly Elixir sect will help. Kang Mingming said. There's no need. The Grand Elder interrupted. What else do you have to say? It's fine if there's no need. I know that Miss Chu has Linny as her backing, but Linny... TSK, I wonder if Miss Chu has heard about Linny recently? I'm afraid that backing is unreliable. Kang Mingming shook his head and sighed. The ancient world hasn't been too peaceful recently. Right, as you said, the black-white double spirits have been gone for too long. They can't control the ancient world anymore. Recently, a group of robbers appeared in the ancient world. You guys have to be careful. If anything happens, ask Linny for help. The Heavenly Elixir sect is powerless. Kang Mingming, what do you mean? If you have something to say, just say it. What do you mean by a gang of robbers? Meng Yao frowned. She didn't understand what Kang Xiaoming was saying. Nothing much, I just heard that there's a group of robbers recently. They specialize in robbing the weaker ancient sections. You guys have to be careful. Kang Mingming didn't stay any longer. He stood up and was ready to leave. All right, that's all I have to say. Think about it yourselves. Elder Kang, are you trying to scare us? The Grand Elder had never heard of any ancient sect robberies recently, so he thought that Kang Xiaoming didn't achieve his goal and was trying to scare the Palace of Darkness with his words. It's up to you whether you want to believe me or not. I'm telling you. Kong Jiaoming shook his head. Together with little Yi, the two of them left the living room and left quickly. The Grand Elder didn't stop them. If Kong Mingming didn't want to talk, there was no point in forcing him. The Grand Elder was strong, but she couldn't force Kong Mingming to stay. That would be going against the Sky Elixir sect. The Grand Elder didn't want the Dark Palace to be dragged into this. Yao Yao, what do you think this Kong Mingming is trying to do? Is he really here to propose? The Grand Elder felt that Kong Mingming's goal wasn't pure. It seemed like he had ulterior motives. I don't know, but maybe I should contact Linny and see if he can come over. We can discuss this with him? He knows Kong Mingming better than I do, Meng Yao suggested. Actually, she missed Linny quite a bit, but she didn't have the chance to go back and Linny was busy. She wanted to use this reason to get Linny to come over. Linny? The Grand Elder frowned. Yao Yao, I don't want to criticize you, but Linny is a solo practitioner. Now that his strength has been exposed, why are you still hanging out with him? A small character like him isn't good enough for you. Not only that, if you let him come, he might bring trouble to the Dark Palace. He was Kong Mingming's enemy in the first place, and now that he's here, we're obviously going against Kong Mingming. Isn't that the same as offending the Sky Elixir sect? The Grand Elder didn't want a marriage alliance with the Sky Elixir sect, but she didn't want to fall out with them. Of course, she looked down on Lin Yi even more. She didn't think that there was anything good about Lin Yi. She didn't want Meng Yao to repeat Yuana's mistake and have something with Lin Yi. Chapter 3295. Forget it, it's up to you. Highest Elder sighed. She felt that there was something wrong with what happened today. The Heavenly Elixir sect came early without any warning, and after being rejected by her, they left directly. This was really strange. But although Meng Yao had established her own prestige in the Palace of Darkness, she was still lacking when it came to the foresight of the ancient level. So, the Grand Elder decided to think about what the Sky Elixir School was trying to do. However, the Grand Elder was destined to be disappointed. She would never have thought that the Sky Elixir sect didn't go through such a big circle for the Dark Palace, but for Lin Yi. But this conclusion was something the Grand Elder would never have thought of. After Kong Mingming and Xiao Yi left the Dark Palace, they went straight back to the Five Elements sect. The rejection from the Dark Palace was actually within their expectations. Kong Mingming called the Xianqian ancestor in the car. Father-in-law, we left the Dark Palace. As expected, the Grand Elder didn't know how to appreciate favors and rejected my proposal, Kong Mingming said. But I carried out the second plan and told her that the ancient level hasn't been peaceful recently. All right, I got it. Leave the rest to me. The Xianqian ancestor sighed and nodded. He hung up and said to the door, Shower, come in for a moment. This Shower was naturally the second disciple of the Xianqian ancestor, Xiao Yi's junior. He was a sky-class late-phase peak full-circle master. Although he hadn't reached full circle for as long as Xiao Yi, he was still one of the top masters in the Five Elements sect. In the Five Elements sect, there were a total of 5 experts at the peak of the late stage of Heaven stage. Apart from the Black Sky ancestor Boss Bai, who had become a cripple, there were still the Black True ancestor, Little One, and Little Two. Master! Shower cupped his fists respectfully and walked in. How about this? Tell Xiao San, Xiao Si, and Xiao Wu to come find me later. I have something for them to do, the Xianqian ancestor said to Shower. Okay, Master, I'll go find them now. Shower quickly nodded. That group of robbers in the ancient level didn't even exist. It was no wonder that the Grand Elder hadn't heard of it. The Xianqian ancestor hadn't formed it yet. Since the Dark Palace rejected the marriage, the Xianqian ancestor had to move on to the next step of his plan, which was to find trouble with the Dark Palace. Either the Grand Elder would force Meng Yao to marry into the Sky Elixir sect, or Meng Yao would ask Lin Yi for help, Either way, Lin Yi couldn't hide anymore. He had to show himself no matter what. There wouldn't be any accidents. Therefore, Elder Xianqian sent his disciple to form a team to cause trouble for the Dark Palace. This time, he sent out 3 heaven-class peak late phase masters in one go. His goal was to make the Dark Palace admit defeat and give them pressure. As for why they didn't send Little Fool, it was because it would be too fake if Little Fool made a move. How many peak late stage heaven rank powerhouses were there in the ancient era? There were only a handful of them. If he sent Xiao'er to the 5 Elements sect, although Xiao'er had never shown up in public in the ancient times, and the Grand Elder definitely wouldn't suspect the 5 Elements sect, Boss Bai definitely would. Apart from those known peak late stage perfect masters, this perfect master could only come from the 5 Elements sect. This was not the result that the Xianqian ancestor wanted. After all, in the Xianqian ancestor's plan, if no other forces came to cause trouble for Lin Yi after Lin Yi appeared, then he would let his disciples' team directly kill Lin Yi. Anyway, it would have nothing to do with him at that time. Even if Boss Bai suspected it, he wouldn't be able to find any evidence. There were very few peak late phase heaven stage experts, but there were a few peak late phase heaven stage experts. Almost every ancient sect had them, and even rogue cultivators had them. Who would know who did it when the time came? Soon, Little 3, Little 4, and Little 5 came in front of the Xianqian ancestor. The 3 bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Master!" "And very good. You're here? I have something for you to do." "How about it?" "You must do it well. Do you hear me?" The Xianqian ancestor's stern voice made the 3 serious. "Don't worry, Master. We'll work hard," the 3 quickly said. "Okay, this is how it is. Bring a few juniors. They don't need to be too powerful. Just heaven rank will do. Then put on a show for me." As the Xianqian ancestor spoke, he told his 3 disciples about his plan. Actually, the 3 peak late stage heaven rank masters were just to intimidate the Dark Palace and give them some pressure. It was just to draw out Lin Yi. They didn't really expect to destroy the Dark Palace. So, it didn't matter if there weren't peak late stage perfect masters. These people were enough to intimidate. After all, the Great Elder was a peak late stage heaven rank master. He couldn't possibly go against 3 peak late stage heaven rank masters. "We understand, Master. We will definitely do this well." After listening, Little 3 and the others felt that this matter wasn't too difficult. Wasn't it just intimidating? When the time came, they would just have to kill a few disciples or work together to injure the Great Elder. It wasn't too difficult. It might not be easy for the 3 of them to work together to kill the Supreme Elder. After all, the Supreme Elder had put up a life-and-death struggle before his death. It was possible that the 3 of them would suffer heavy losses. However, injuring and threatening the Supreme Elder was still possible. "Yes, but there is one thing you must pay attention to. You must be wary of the 3 old ancestors of the Yellow Spring sect. If they come to help, you must retreat. Even if they are at the peak of the late stage of heaven stage, it is impossible for them to instantly kill you. You will definitely be able to escape," Old Ancestor Xianqian reminded. The only uncertain factor now was the Bloodcloak Underworld sect. He didn't know if the 3 elders of that sect were still on Lin Yi's side. He didn't know if they'd stick their noses into Ming Yao's business. The possibility wasn't high, but he still had to be careful. "We understand. We have Little 5 as a cheat. We know what the opponent's strength is. As long as there are peak masters, we will retreat immediately," Little 3 said immediately. Chapter 3296. This was an auxiliary martial skill that could directly determine the cultivation level of the opponent. Even if the opponent did not circulate the mantra, it could still be seen. This martial skill was actually of little value. It could make use of the opponent's cultivation level to raise one's own martial skill to the same level as the opponent's cultivation level to attack. It was a rather heaven-defying technique that borrowed strength to fight. But now that Little 5 was a peak late phase heaven class, the technique he could release was also at the peak late phase heaven class. Unless he met a master at the great perfection level, he could release a technique at the great perfection level. Other times, he didn't need to use it at all. Of course, before he had his current strength, his auxiliary martial skill was still quite useful. He used to be a very powerful cultivator. When he was in the Earth rank, he was able to escape after exchanging a blow with a high-level cultivator. But now, there was nothing special about it. That's good. The Xiantian ancestor nodded. This was also the reason why he let his 3 disciples do it. Once a master appeared, Little 5 would definitely notice, and the 3 of them wouldn't be at a disadvantage. After all, this robbery had its risks. If the blood-cloth underworld sect killed them righteously, the Xiantian ancestor wouldn't be able to reason with them. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't just admit that the robbery group had something to do with him. Otherwise, Boss Bai would definitely use it as a pretext. Then, let's pack up and go to the Palace of Darkness tomorrow? Little 3 asked. Yes, you guys go, the Xiantian ancestor said. Remember, you can't kill the Grand Elder of the Palace of Darkness. Kill the other disciples as a warning. Your goal is to draw out Linny. Okay, Master. But what if Linny comes? Little 3 continued to ask. If Linny comes, spread the news and let Lin Yi's enemies kill him. Of course, if no one does it, you guys can kill him too. Just act according to the situation, the Xiantian ancestor ordered. No problem. Little 3 nodded in agreement. The Grand Elder sent Kong Mingming away, but she couldn't figure out their motives. Of course, she didn't know that the Dark Palace was about to face a disaster, and she would lose a layer of skin even if she didn't die. She was currently at the critical moment of attacking the peak of the Heaven rank. If she was injured, the Heaven Stage Island plan would have nothing to do with her. However, Patriarch Xiantian had already made a decision with just a few words. Even with the Grand Supreme Elder's ability, he could not change anything. So what if she thought of it? Even if he didn't expect it, what could he do? The next morning, a dozen uninvited guests came to the Dark Palace. Among them, the 3 leaders were the strongest, with Sky-class late phase peak. The rest of the underlings ranged from Sky-class late phase to Earth-class late phase peak. Of course, most of them were only Sky-class early phase. Boom, boom, boom! The stone phoenix statue at the foot of the Dark Palace was smashed by Little 3, Little 4, and Little 5. Sand and stones flew everywhere. This stone phoenix was made from hard iron stone, and hard iron stone was one of the raw materials used to make heaven-rank divine weapons. It was extremely hard, and it was different from the stones in the secular world. Its hardness was comparable to diamond, but it was still shattered by Little 3 and the others. It was obvious how strong they were. The disciple guarding the door was shocked by this sudden turn of events. He saw a group of masked men in black come to the door, and was about to ask them what they were here for. He didn't think that they would attack without saying anything and smash the stone phoenix representing the Dark Palace. What were they trying to do? You! The disciple was so scared he couldn't speak. He looked at the people in front of him in shock. When Little 3, Little 4, and Little 5 broke the stone phoenix, they already showed their strength, Sky-class late phase peak. 3 Sky-class late phase peak masters suddenly appeared here, and they didn't come with good intentions. How could the disciple feel at ease? This is a robbery. Call the person in charge of the Dark Palace out. Little 3 looked coldly at the disciple and humphed. Hurry up, I'll give you 10 minutes. If you don't show up in 10 minutes, we'll force our way in. Don't. I'll go report right now, seniors, please wait a moment. Although the disciple calling these thieves seniors made him feel bad, but they were strong now, and he had to bow his head. Humph! Hurry up! Little 3 humphed coldly. The disciple ran to report to the Grand Elder and Mengyao, and when the Grand Elder found out that a bunch of thieves had appeared outside the Palace of Darkness, breaking the stone phoenix totem of the Palace of Darkness, he was instantly enraged. Who are these people? How dare they come to our Dark Palace? Do they want to die? The Grand Elder wanted to demand an explanation from these people. But the disciple was startled. He promptly waved his hand and said, Supreme Elder, don't be impulsive. The 3 leaders of that group of thieves revealed their strength when they crushed the Phoenix. These 3 are peak late-stage heaven rank experts. What? 3 Sky-class late-phase peak masters? The Grand Elder paused. Her angry face immediately calmed down, and became terrifyingly gloomy. The Grand Elder originally thought that this was a group of thieves that didn't want to live anymore. No matter how strong they were, they wouldn't be able to do anything in front of her, a Sky-class late-phase peak master. But now, after hearing the disciples' words, the Grand Elder felt that something was wrong. What did 3 Sky-class late-phase peak masters mean? If the 3 of them worked together, it was possible that they could kill her. Did you notify Yao Yao? The Grand Elder took a deep breath, reminding herself to calm down. She had to calm down. What happened today wasn't a normal thing, and she had to be careful or the consequences would be unimaginable. I've already sent someone to notify her. Palace Master Chu should know by now. The disciple was talking when Meng Yao walked in with a serious face. Grand Elder, Meng Yao said hurriedly after walking in. The Grand Elder waved her hand. Yao Yao, come with me, let's go take a look. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse, and if it's a curse, we can't avoid it. These people didn't force their way in, they just want to see the people in charge of the Dark Palace. Perhaps there's still a chance to turn things around. Chapter 3297. After accepting the inheritance of the Dark Phoenix, her strength had increased by leaps and bounds, but she was still only in Earth-class early phase. But as the Palace Master of the Dark Palace, she had to take responsibility and show herself. Meng Yao and the Grand Elder soon arrived at the entrance of the Dark Palace. At this point, Little 3 and the others were getting impatient. He jumped up and slammed his palm on the sign that said Dark Palace. Stop! At this moment, Meng Yao and the Grand Elder arrived at the scene. The Grand Elder's heart skipped a beat when he saw Little 3 making a move. He leaped up and attacked Little 3. Bang! The 2's palms collided and quickly separated. Of course. The 2 of them were just probing each other, they didn't clash head-on. But even so, the Supreme Elder was shocked. This Little 3 really has the strength of a peak late-stage heaven rank, he isn't simple. If they fought head-on, the Grand Elder wouldn't be able to kill him at all, and she'd be heavily injured instead. This discovery made her a little depressed. Where did these people come from? I am the Grand Elder of the Dark Palace. May I ask where you heroes are from, and what business do you have here at the Dark Palace? The Grand Elder landed and cupped her fists. She was pissed off at these people's evil actions, but she didn't dare get angry at the situation. That would be suicide. We brothers want to start our own sect, but we're lacking some resources. We're here to ask for some from the Dark Palace. I wonder if this Grand Elder here will agree or agree or agree? Little 3 smiled. What do you want, heroes? The Grand Elder asked helplessly. Start a sect? Need some resources? Wasn't that robbery? Robbery? Just say it out loud, there was no need for so many reasons and excuses. But even though the Great Elder knew this, he could only ask patiently. The cultivation world was different from the mundane world. There was no room for reasoning when it came to robberies. It was the law of the jungle. The Palace of Darkness was weak, so naturally, these people came to bully them. What do you want? Brother, didn't I say it just now? We brothers want to establish our own sect, but we currently lack some resources. Little 3 said. What resources do you need? Asked the Grand Elder. Establishing a sect requires some cultivation resources, right? What heavenly materials and earthly treasures? We must have them, Little 3 said. You mean, we're going to give you heaven and earth treasures? In fact, the Grand Supreme Elder had already guessed something. These cultivators naturally did not come to rob for money. If they wanted money, they would not come to rob ancient sections. They could just rob any financial group in the secular world and they would have everything. The reason they came to the ancient sect was naturally for the cultivation resources. That's right, give us everything you have. Little 3 nodded. You want all of them? The Great Elder's face changed. He didn't expect these people to be so greedy. They wanted all the resources of the Dark Palace. Wasn't that the same as asking for the Dark Palace's life? Hee, of course, but don't worry, it's not over yet. Little Three waved her hand and continued. We still need a place to establish our sect. I think this Dark Palace's location is not bad. Let it belong to us from now on. You guys can move away. Don't even think about it. The Grand Supreme Elder was shaking with anger. This is too much, too much. Don't you know that your actions have already broken the rules of cultivation in the ancient times? Broken? Ha ha ha, old woman, are you out of your mind? You want to talk about ancient rules with us robbers? Are you crazy? Little Three laughed. If you have the ability, then do it. If you don't, then bear with it. I'll give you a few days to think about it. In a few days, when we come here again, we will take over the Dark Palace. When that time comes, don't blame us for not giving you face. Dream on. There's no need to wait. I can tell you clearly that this is the birthplace of the Dark Palace. We will not give it to you. This is the honor of the Dark Palace. You will not be allowed to tarnish it. As for the resources you want, I can give you some. I hope that you will leave after you get them. Don't go too far, the Grand Supreme Elder said firmly. The Grand Supreme Elder would never give up the Dark Palace's territory. This was the honor of the Dark Palace. She would defend it with her life. She would not allow the Dark Palace to be destroyed in her hands. The birthplace of the Dark Palace passed down by her ancestors could not be lost. The Grand Elder could give up some of his training resources, he could take the insults and mockery. But if someone wanted to do something that would damage the Dark Palace's foundation, then he would never do it, even if it meant death. One had to say, although the Grand Supreme Elder was a snobbish person, she was sincere towards the Dark Palace. As long as it was beneficial to the Dark Palace, she would do anything that would lose her dignity. But if it was not beneficial to the Dark Palace, she would not be allowed to be killed. Old thing, I think you're going to do this the hard way. Little Three was waiting for the Grand Supreme Elder to say this. He was going to establish his dominance. Little Three laughed coldly and said to Little Four and Little Five, Second brother, third brother, let's teach this old woman a lesson. All right. Little Four and Little Five replied. The three of them surrounded the Grand Supreme Elder. The Grand Supreme Elder's heart skipped a beat. She didn't think that the three of them would attack just like that. They didn't care about the ancient rules at all. But no matter what, she had to keep going. If she did, she would lose the birthplace of the Dark Palace. Then she'd be the sinner of the Dark Palace. She wouldn't be able to face the ancestors of the Dark Palace in the afterlife. Mengyao was panicking, but there was nothing she could do. She was weak, an Earth-class early phase. She had no advantage in front of these people. She could only be panicking, but she couldn't help at all. Plus, if she went to help, she might even be more of a hindrance. After all, the Grand Supreme Elder had to take care of her, and couldn't focus on the enemies. Chapter 3298. The three of them attacked at the same time, and the Grand Elder had to take it all on his own. One could imagine how pitiful it would be. The Grand Elder's attack was neutralized by the three of them, but the three of them focused their attacks on the Grand Elder at the same time. 3 different directions, 3 different moves, all aimed at the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder didn't have time to react, and he couldn't care less about the front and the back. The 3 attacks landed on the Grand Elder at the same time, and he spat out a mouthful of blood as he landed heavily on the ground. He'd suffered an extremely serious internal injury. Overconfident old thing, I'll give you a few days to think about it. Next time, it won't be this easy. If you don't leave the Palace of Darkness, the next time will be the day everyone in the Palace of Darkness dies. Little Three looked at the Grand Elder on the ground, his eyes flashing with viciousness. You! Who are you? Could it be Kong Mingming sent you? Mengyao was worried about the Grand Elder's safety, but this wasn't the time to worry about him. She had to figure out where these people came from. The Grand Elder could be very harsh and unreasonable at times, but Meng Yao could see that he was loyal to the Palace of Darkness. She was very worried. Meng Yao had thought of something before, and that was Kong Mingming had said something before he left yesterday. He said that the ancient level wasn't peaceful these days, and there were robbers and gangs, and these people came the next day. Was there really such a coincidence in this world? These people. Meng Yao felt that they had something to do with Kong Mingming. Little Three paused. He didn't expect Meng Yao to be this smart, guessing their identity. This was the deadliest. The reason why Patriarch Xianqin made them cover their faces was to avoid detection. He didn't want them to show their true faces to others. But Meng Yao had guessed it. Yet, Xiao San couldn't do anything to Meng Yao. He could do anything to the Grand Elder and the others from the Dark Palace, but not to Meng Yao. She was the inheritor of the Dark Palace's metal element, and was crucial to the Xianqin Elder's future plans on Sky Class Island. If he hurt Meng Yao, he wouldn't be able to walk away unscathed. Thinking of this, Little Three suddenly had an idea and snorted. "Oh? How did you know? Are you really sent by Kong Mingming?" Meng Yao didn't think that the mistress would admit to it. Meng Yao's face turned ugly. "So you're saying that you're here to cause trouble for me?" "That's right, I'm guessing. So you are from the Heavenly Elixir sect?" Although the highest elder was seriously injured, he was annoyed when he heard Little Three's words. Is the Heavenly Elixir sect going to take the lead in breaking the ancient rules? "What do you mean?" Little Three pretended to be confused. "We wanted to rob the Heavenly Elixir sect. I heard that they're the richest sect in the ancient world, and they're all refiners without much strength. But we didn't expect them to be a bunch of tough bones. Mother Faster, there's an endless supply of masters, and there's even a consummate master. We didn't get any benefits at all. If it wasn't for that Elder Kong Mingming being such a good person, telling us that the Dark Palace was the weakest and easy to bully, we wouldn't have come here. It's Kong Mingming after all." Meng Yao gritted her teeth. Although these people weren't sent by Kong Mingming directly, they were definitely related to Kong Mingming. This Kong Xiaoming came to propose yesterday and failed. After he went back, he was up to no good and brought this group of people over. Or rather, this group of people hadn't just arrived yesterday. Kong Xiaoming had told them about it before they arrived. But Kong Xiaoming had arrived before them. Otherwise, how would they know that the ancient plane wasn't peaceful recently? "Girl, don't care about that Kong Mingming. You're the palace master here, right? I'll give you a chance to think about it. We'll come back in a few days," Little Three said and waved his hand. "Let's go." With that, Little Three led his people down the mountain. His followers didn't even have the chance to do anything before they left. They were only here to cheer. If Little Three hadn't injured the highest elder, they would have ganged up on him and killed a few of the Dark Palace's disciples. But now, there was no need for that. They had achieved their goal. "Highest elder, are you alright?" Meng Yao walked over and helped the highest elder up after they left. "They've gone too far." The highest elder's face was filled with anger and unwillingness, but there was also a deep sense of helplessness. Although this group of robbers was arrogant, they were extremely strong. The Supreme Elder couldn't compete with them at all. Now, she had suffered a serious internal injury, and it made her lose all hope. She knew her own body well. She was planning to break through to Sky Class Late Phase Peak soon. If she did, not only would the Dark Palace's overall strength increase, but she would also be able to participate in the Sky Class Island plan. If everything went well, she might even be able to step into Heaven's path. However, even though it was a good idea, he didn't expect such a thing to happen at this critical moment. This caused the Grand Elder's eyes to be filled with despair. It was over, it was all over. The Dark Palace might not even be able to get through this, let alone increase their strength. Heaven's path, on the other hand, was even more distant. Meng Yao was silent. Kong Mingming's actions were indeed a bit unreasonable, but she understood the law of the jungle even before she joined the Dark Palace. If it wasn't for Lin Yi's strength, she would have been eaten up a long time ago. But now that this was happening to the Dark Palace, Meng Yao wouldn't be happy. "Highest Elder, what do we do?" These people. Yao Yao, in order to protect the Dark Palace, we can only agree to the Sky Elixir sect's request. Marry the young master of the Sky Elixir sect, and you can ask for their protection. The highest elder wasn't willing to do this, but she didn't think that there would be any other way if she didn't do this now. Ah? Meng Yao paused after hearing the highest elder's words. No, I don't want to, that's impossible. Chapter 3299. But I won't do something like this, I like Lin Yi, I won't betray him. Meng Yao shook her head firmly. Elder, I'll talk to Lin Yi about this. I'm sure he'll have a way to solve this. Lin Yi? Yao Yao, don't be stupid. Lin Yi's just a lone practitioner. How could he have a solution? His true strength has already been exposed. How could he be a match for these people? You have to know that there are at least 3 Sky-class late-phase peak masters among them in the ancient times, other than the Sky Elixir sect. Who else could suppress them? The Grand Elder said with disdain after hearing Meng Yao's words. She'd never liked Lin Yi. No, Lin Yi will definitely have a solution, Meng Yao said, but her heart was beating like a drum. She'd spent the longest time with Lin Yi, and she knew exactly how strong Lin Yi was. Lin Yi might be able to kill someone stronger than him, but he'd still be at his weakest. Meng Yao knew how many high-level masters died, and now there were at least 3 Sky-class late-phase peak masters. Could Lin Yi really deal with them? Yao Yao, this is settled. I'll talk to the Sky Elixir sect and let them propose. If Lin Yi isn't a match for them, then our Palace of Darkness is finished, the Grand Elder said firmly. Grand Elder, when I came to the Palace of Darkness, you said that you wouldn't interfere with my personal affairs. If this is your decision, then I'll have to leave. I'd rather die than follow you, Meng Yao said with determination. You. The Grand Elder was a bit dumbfounded. She knew what kind of person Meng Yao was, and she was completely different from Yi Wan. Yi Wan accepted everything, but Meng Yao knew how to fight back. With her personality, she might really fight back with her life. But Yao Yao, do you want to see the Palace of Darkness fall? The Great Elder sighed and asked. No, Lin Yi will find a way, Meng Yao said firmly. Sigh. The Grand Elder shook his head helplessly. Yao Yao, help me back to my room to rest. If you insist on doing this, then it means that the heavens want to destroy the Palace of Darkness. However, you're the inheritor. Even if Kong Ming is the son-in-law of the 5 Elements sect, you're still an inheritor. The 5 Elements sect won't make things too difficult for you. Yao Yao, promise me that one day, when you go to the Heavenly Stage Island and step into the Heavenly Dao, you must revive the Dark Night Palace. Grand Elder. Meng Yao didn't expect the Grand Elder to say something like this. She fell silent for a moment. Yes, the Grand Elder may have some flaws here and there, but her heart was for the Palace of Darkness, and that would never change. But how good would it be if she could trust Lin Yi? All right, that's enough. Go look for Lin Yi. When Lin Yi arrives, you'll know that he's a loose cultivator. How weak they are! The Grand Elder interrupted Meng Yao and slowly walked into the Dark Palace with Meng Yao's support. The Grand Elder was heavily injured, and went into isolation to recuperate. Perhaps she was completely disappointed in Meng Yao, waiting for the end of the Dark Palace to come. Meng Yao didn't say anything, but the news of what happened in front of the Palace of Darkness spread across the entire Palace of Darkness. All the disciples were in a state of panic. Meng Yao couldn't help but frown at the situation, but she didn't explain anything. It was pointless to say anything at this point. The Grand Elder was injured, and it was a fact. Everything would have to wait for Lin Yi to come. If Lin Yi were to make a move, then it would be more useful than 100 or 1,000 words from Meng Yao. Go back and do your own things, the sky isn't falling yet. Meng Yao waved her hand, telling the confused disciples to go back to their own things. Meng Yao's authority in the Dark Palace was second only to the Grand Elder, so her words were very effective. The disciples left in a blink of an eye. Meng Yao went back to her room and called Lin Yi. What happened just now was too sudden, and there were a lot of disciples watching. Meng Yao didn't notice that Zhao Qibing, who was cleaning the toilet, had sneaked in behind the disciples. Although the conversation between Meng Yao and the Grand Elder wasn't loud, Zhao Qibing still heard something. So when Meng Yao called Lin Yi, he called Kong Ming Ming as well. "Elder Kong, it's Lil Bing," Zhao Qibing said. "Oh, Qibing. What's up? Is there news from the Dark Palace?" Kong Ming Ming asked. "Yes, didn't you come to force the marriage? Today, a group of robbers came and injured the Grand Elder, but Meng Yao and the Grand Elder had a dispute. The Grand Elder wanted Meng Yao to marry into the Sky Elixir sect, but Meng Yao didn't agree and insisted on looking for Lin Yi. She's probably calling Lin Yi now," Kong Ming Ming said softly. "Oh? Really? That's great." Kong Ming Ming laughed happily. "I'm not afraid of her looking for him, I'm afraid that she won't look for him. Qibing, you've done well. Don't worry, after this, you'll definitely get the position of deacon. Not only that, if you get the appreciation of Ancestor Xianxin, who is also my father-in-law, it won't be hard for you to become an expert at the peak of the late stage of Heaven Realm." "Ah? Really?" Zhao Qibing was excited. He didn't think that he would have this kind of opportunity. "That's right. You might not know this, but your father and Elder Mian are highly valued here. They're secretly receiving their strength enhancement, and when the time comes, you might be able to enjoy this benefit too." The benefit Kong Ming Ming was talking about was naturally transforming them into biohumans. This was basically a trap, but when it came out of his mouth, it became a great thing. But Zhao Qibing didn't know the inside story and thought that he was valued because of his contribution. He said gratefully, "Don't worry, Elder Kong, what else do you want me to do next?" "Next, pay attention to when Lin Yi goes to the Dark Palace. When Lin Yi goes there, you must call me immediately," Kong Ming Ming ordered. "All right, no problem." This was a simple task for Zhao Qibing. He quickly nodded in agreement. Chapter 3300. Although Lin Yi had a trump card, he was no longer the Sky-class early-phase peak master that was chased by the Association like a stray dog. The current Lin Yi was a Sky-class mid-phase master, and with the help of the Essence Necklace, he should have the strength to kill a Sky-class late-phase peak master. After all, he was only a Sky-class early-phase peak, and without the Essence Necklace, he could injure He Tianzu, who was a Sky-class late-phase peak master. Now, Lin Yi's strength had increased, and he had the Essence Necklace. If he still couldn't deal with a Sky-class late-phase peak master, then he should really buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. He might even be able to take on a master with the strength of a perfection. Of course, the premise was that Lin Yi could use the 11th form of the Frenzy 8 trigram palm. Although the 5 Elements 8 trigram palm only had 10 forms, the Frenzy Fire Fist had as many as 30 forms. When the big fire lion told Lin Yi this secret, Lin Yi was very excited. If this combination continued in theory, he should be able to use the 30th form of the Frenzy 8 trigram palm. That power would be invincible. Lin Yi only used the activation method of the 5 Elements 8 trigram palm, and the incantations for the martial arts were all from the Frenzy Fire Fist. The activation method didn't change, and as long as he changed the incantations, Lin Yi could combine more and more powerful forms. However, these were all Lin Yi's guesses. In fact, Lin Yi didn't know if he could use more than 10 forms of the Frenzy Fire 8 trigram palm. In theory, it was possible, but it didn't mean that it was possible in practice. After all, the 5 Elements 8 trigram palm had a limit of 10 forms. Opening the door, he looked at the familiar courtyard, and a sense of security filled his heart. Unknowingly, Lin Yi had already treated this place as his own home, or rather, a place with Meng Yao and Shu. This was home. "Oh? Shield bro?" Yushu was sleeping when she heard noises coming from the yard. She looked out the window and saw that Lin Yi, Shirhan, and Qingyi were back. Yushu had heard some news about the ancient world recently, since Meng Yao would call her occasionally to ask about Lin Yi's situation. Meng Yao told Yushu about her worries and rumors when she found out that Lin Yi wasn't in the country. "Shu! It's so late, why aren't you sleeping?" Lin Yi didn't expect Shu to come out. "How have you been? Did anyone come looking for trouble with you?" "Not really. Yushu shook her head. Right, shield bro, is what Yao Yao said true? Are you being hunted by the Overseas Cultivators Association? Linny heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that little Shu was fine. It seemed that the people of the ancient times still had some rules. He didn't do anything reckless, but he didn't expect that even Shu knew about it. But since it was Meng Yao who said it, it wasn't surprising. But it's all in the past now. Right, how's Yao Yao doing in the Palace of Darkness? Linny was still worried about Meng Yao. After all, the Palace of Darkness was different from the Ice Palace. The Grand Elder was obviously a snobbish man, and Meng Yao might have found a point of balance for now, but the moment the two of them disagreed, the balance would be broken. She's fine, and she misses Shield Bro a lot. Maybe you can give her a call, Shield Bro? Yushu always liked to pester Linny to tell her stories when he came back, but today, for the first time, she asked Linny to call Meng Yao first. One could see how important Meng Yao was in her heart. Okay, I'll call her tomorrow morning. It's too late now. It was already midnight when Linny got home, so Linny planned to call her tomorrow. But what Linny didn't expect was that Lin Yi's phone rang. Linny paused when he saw the caller ID. It was Meng Yao. Linny was puzzled. How did Meng Yao know that he was back? Could it be Shu? No, Shu came out when she saw him coming back. Could it be Wang Xinyan? But Wang Xinyan wasn't as vigilant as Shu. She should be sleeping right now. Otherwise, Wang Xinyan would definitely come downstairs instead of calling Meng Yao. Hello, Yao Yao? No matter what, Linny picked up the phone first. Linny, where are you? Are you back? Meng Yao's voice was nervous and hurried. It was understandable. If Linny was still abroad, he wouldn't be able to make it back in time. I just got home. I'm talking to Shu in the yard. Why are you calling me now? Linny found it strange that Meng Yao didn't know where he was. It seemed like no one told her. Linny, something happened in the Palace of Darkness. Meng Yao didn't hide anything. She told Linny everything, from Kong Mingning bringing people to propose to the 3 Sky-class late-phase peak bandits robbing the Palace of Darkness. Linny couldn't help but frown when he heard Kong Xiaoming jumping out again. Anger welled up in his heart. It seemed like this guy was still restless. He couldn't help but jump out again after hearing the news from abroad. The young master of the Sky Elixir sect wanted to marry Meng Yao? At least, Linny didn't believe it. After all, Linny had heard from Kong Xiaobo and Peach that Silkworm transformation wasn't a bad person. Not to mention that Silkworm transformation had helped Linny a couple of times. How could Linny believe that Silkworm transformation would do something like this? It was probably the work of the Xianqian ancestor, and Kong Mingning, wasn't it? But Kong Mingning marrying the 11th surprised Linny. Peach had only said that Kong Mingning had abandoned her, but didn't say anything about the Xianqian ancestor and the 11th's identities. So now that he knew that Kong Mingming was the Xianqian ancestor's son-in-law, Linny was very shocked. The two of them actually got together? They were both extremely bad people. What good could come out of them being together? However, Linny smiled coldly. He was worried that he wouldn't have a chance to show his power again after coming back. Now that all the forces were ready to make a move, if Linny didn't show his power again, it would be too late when his enemies joined forces to find trouble with him. Although Linny had a new trump card, he couldn't face multiple masters at the same time. And now, this group of robbers came to his door. Linny was going to use them. Chapter 3301. Of course, Linny didn't believe that this group of people appeared out of nowhere. From Lin Yi's point of view, this group of people was more or less related to Kong Mingming and the Xianqian ancestor. However, it wasn't a bad thing to spread the news of Lin Yi's current strength through these people. It was just that 3 Sky-class peak late-phase masters. If they attacked together, it would be hard for Lin Yi to deal with them. He could only find a chance to kill one in a second to shock them and let the rest retreat. He didn't know if it would work. Lin Yi prayed in his heart, "This essence necklace, please don't screw it up." "I know, I'll go to the Palace of Darkness tomorrow." Lin Yi nodded. Yao Yao, don't worry, I said I'll protect you for life. Meng Yao blushed slightly. If it was before, she might say in her heart, who needs you to protect me for life? But now, Meng Yao already understood her feelings. She was only happy after hearing what Lin Yi said. Rest early, I'll go tomorrow morning, Lin Yi said. Okay, I'll wait for you. Meng Yao didn't know why, but after hearing Lin Yi's words, she felt very relieved, as if the things that were going to happen tomorrow were nothing. Although Lin Yi said it casually, he didn't dare to waste a second after hanging up. He turned to Yushu and the others. Shu, you take Xiaohan and Yi to rest. I need to prepare for tomorrow morning's trip to the Palace of Darkness. Okay, shield bro. Yushu was very clear-cut when it came to the big picture. She knew that Lin Yi had something urgent to attend to, and so she didn't bother him with questions about the foreign trip. Su Shihan and Qingyi's explanations were all the same. Lin Yi didn't go back to his room directly. Instead, he went to the backyard of the villa. Lin Yi came here to try activating the 11th form of fire Bagwazang. Before, Lin Yi only imagined that he could activate the 11th form, but he didn't try it. After all, theory was theory, reality was reality. Logically speaking, when Lin Yi was Earth Class Late Phase Peak and Sky Class Early Phase, he should be able to activate the 10th form. But he didn't manage to do it until he was Sky Class Early Phase Peak. So, Lin Yi had to practice it. If he could successfully activate the 11th form, then Lin Yi would be more confident when he went to the Palace of Darkness tomorrow. By then, Lin Yi wouldn't be afraid of anything. If he couldn't, then Lin Yi could only resign himself to fate. When he came to the familiar backyard of the villa, General Wei Wu, Skybolt Pig, and Feng ran out and surrounded Lin Yi intimately. These three spirit beasts were the closest to Lin Yi, so they were naturally happy that Lin Yi was back. Go play, I don't have time for you guys today. Lin Yi waved his hand, signaling them to go play. Lin Yi's mission tonight was the 11th form of fire Bagwazang. The three spirit beasts naturally understood Lin Yi's words. Although they were a little disappointed, they still went to the side and didn't disturb Lin Yi. Lin Yi calmed himself down and revised the 10th form of fire Bagwazang. This form was used when Lin Yi was facing He Tianzu overseas. He was forced to activate it, but now, Lin Yi could use it freely. After activating it, Lin Yi could clearly feel that there was still a lot of qi left in his body. At least, he could activate it one more time. This was not only the benefit of increasing his strength, but also the essence qi necklace. Not only could the necklace increase his attack and defense, but it could also increase his stamina. Therefore, Lin Yi's stamina and qi were a little more than before. This was reasonable. However, this discovery made Lin Yi very excited. The 10th style of the Frenzy 8 trigrams palm could heavily injure a Sky Class Late Phase Master. If he could use it twice tomorrow and injure 2 Sky Class Late Phase Masters, it would be enough to shock everyone present. However, if possible, it was more important to activate the 11th form of Fire Bagwazang. After activating the 10th form of Fire Bagwazang, Lin Yi's stamina was not enough to activate the 10th form again. But it was enough to activate the 9th form or use it to escape. Lin Yi sat cross-legged on the ground and activated the Art of Dragon Mastery. His qi recovered quickly, and Lin Yi found that the speed at which he recovered his qi was also faster than before. Obviously, this should be because of the Essence Qi necklace. This Essence Qi necklace was really a good thing. Soon, when Lin Yi recovered his qi, Lin Yi started to try to activate the 11th form of Fire Bagwazang. However, the activation of the 11th form was obviously not as easy as the 10th form. Lin Yi's first attempt ended in failure. But Lin Yi was not discouraged. The previous forms also failed, but this time, Lin Yi clearly felt that he was just a little bit away from success. If he continued to try, he would succeed. Because of this belief, Lin Yi kept trying to activate the 11th form of Fire Bagwazang for the whole night. Finally, at dawn, Lin Yi successfully activated it, and he was very familiar with it. And Lin Yi had more or less figured out the pattern of the Essence Qi necklace increasing attack power. The probability was 50%. In other words, if Lin Yi used the same move and failed once, he would definitely succeed the next time. And if he succeeded this time, he would definitely fail the next time. In other words, the probability was not random, but a real 50%. This discovery made Lin Yi very happy. Before Lin Yi left, he activated the 11th form of fire Bagwazang once at home. Next time, he would be able to get the 11th form of fire Bagwazang that increased attack power. After discovering this pattern, Lin Yi rode on the purple lightning beast at dawn, full of confidence, as he headed towards the Dark Palace. This was Lin Yi's first time at the Dark Palace, but Meng Yao had already given the address to Lin Yi. Lin Yi rode on the purple lightning beast and headed towards the Dark Palace. Because it was early in the morning, the sky was still dark, so no one would notice Lin Yi and his beast. Looking at the majestic gate of the Dark Palace and the broken statue of the stone phoenix, Lin Yi sighed. This Kong Ming Ming was too arrogant. Did he really think that he was a stray dog? Chapter 3302. Lin Yi didn't believe that the robbers in the Dark Palace had nothing to do with Kong Ming Ming and the Xianqian ancestor. How could there be so many peak late phase heaven-class masters in the ancient world? Lin Yi knew more about the Xianqian ancestor. These three people were probably brought here by the Xianqian ancestor. Otherwise, all this talk about starting a sect was bullshit. The Palace of Darkness wasn't a place with abundant energy. Without the Dark Phoenix bloodline, training here would only be average. He would look for other deep mountains and forests. There was more energy there than here. Lin Yi could believe that these bandits were robbing resources, but he didn't believe that they were robbing territory. But did the Xianqian ancestor and Kong Ming Ming really just want to cause trouble for the Dark Palace? Or did they have other motives? You! What do you do? Just as Lin Yi stood in front of the mountain gate, a disciple hiding in the dark walked out, trembling. He looked at Lin Yi and asked timidly. The disciple couldn't be blamed for being timid. What happened yesterday really scared him. Today, Lin Yi came here riding a spirit beast, looking very domineering. The disciple hid far away and only dared to ask when he saw that Lin Yi didn't make a fuss. Is Yao Yao here? Lin Yi looked at the disciple and frowned. Wasn't he a little too timid? He still wanted to be a disciple like this. There really was no one else in the Dark Palace. Yao Yao? The disciple paused and then thought of something. Are you looking for our palace master Chu? Yes, is she here? Lin Yi asked. Are you the young master of the Heaven Elixir sect, Silkworm Transformation? The disciple jumped in fright. Kang Xiaoming had come to propose, and now this domineering young man was standing there. The disciple immediately thought of Sky Silkworm Transformation. What's Silkworm Transformation? Lin Yi paused and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How did this disciple become so frightened? Was it rain from wind? He didn't look like that pretty boy from Silkworm Transformation, did he? Go find your palace master and tell her that Lin Yi is here. You're Lin Yi? Okay, wait a moment. Although Lin Yi's reputation had been tarnished recently, it didn't affect Lin Yi's prestige in the hearts of these disciples. He didn't dare to underestimate Lin Yi when he appeared in such a domineering manner. He quickly turned around and reported to Meng Yao. Lin Yi's eyes flashed with a hint of sharpness as he looked at the direction the disciple left in. Because Lin Yi wasn't looking at the disciple, but at an old acquaintance of Lin Yi's. This person was Zhao Qibing. However, Lin Yi didn't stop Zhao Qibing right away. He wanted to see what this kid was up to. One had to know that the perception of a sky-class master was very strong. It was easy for Lin Yi to watch Zhao Qibing's every move. Zhao Qibing secretly took out his phone from his pocket and dialed a number. Although Lin Yi didn't know who he was calling, he didn't care what he said. Lin Yi could hear everything clearly from where he was. Elder Kong? I'm Lo Bing, Zhao Qibing said in a low voice, as if he didn't know that he was being watched by Lin Yi. He thought that his position was hidden and Lin Yi wouldn't be able to find him. He didn't think that there would be someone in the Palace of Darkness who would inform him. Oh? Qibing, what's up? Kong Ming Ming asked, Is Linny here? That's right, Elder Calm. Linny is here, he's at the entrance of the Palace of Darkness, Zhao Qibing said. All right, I got it. Don't worry, I'll take care of it, Kong Mingming said faintly. All right, thank you, Elder Calm. I'll be waiting to become the manager of the Sky Elixir sect, Zhao Qibing said quickly and hung up the phone and left in a hurry. Lin Yi's face was expressionless, but he was laughing coldly in his heart. It seemed that his guess was right. Everything that happened in the Palace of Darkness had something to do with Kong Mingming. That robber group was probably sent by Kong Mingming. Otherwise, why would Zhao Qibing call him? However, Lin Yi started to understand what Kong Mingming was trying to do. Kong Mingming paid so much attention to whether he came to the Palace of Darkness or not. It was most likely that he went to the Palace of Darkness to cause trouble, not for Mengyao, but for him. Lin Yi, Kong Mingming, and Elder Xianxin had a deep grudge against each other, and it was impossible for Kong Mingming not to do anything when Lin Yi exposed his strength abroad. But Lin Yi didn't come back for a while, and Kong Mingming didn't have a chance to cause trouble for him. He probably couldn't hold it in anymore and wanted to use the Palace of Darkness to lure him out. Because Kong Mingming knew that this was related to Mengyao, and he couldn't just ignore it. But he didn't know that Lin Yi wasn't hiding abroad, but to increase his strength and create the Jade Space. And Lin Yi was worried about not having a chance to show off his new strength, to become someone who could kill a Sky-class late-phase peak in one hit, and this Kong Mingming gave him the chance. So, Lin Yi didn't stop Zhao Qibing at all. If he stopped him, who would tell him? Lin Yi came here today, not afraid of the robber group coming, as long as they didn't come. If they didn't come, wouldn't Lin Yi's trip be in vain? He might even have to stay here and wait for them to come, and that would be a waste of time. Lin Yi had a lot of things to do now. After this, he'd suppress the enemy forces, and Lin Yi was ready to find Armadillo. He had the location of the poison refinery, and all he needed was action. Not long after Zhao Qibing disappeared, Mengyao appeared. What Lin Yi didn't expect was that in such a short time, Mengyao was already an Earth-class early-phase master. Yao Yao, I didn't think that your strength would increase so quickly. Lin Yi looked at the familiar face in front of him and smiled. Lin Yi. Mengyao missed Lin Yi too. After separating from him, Mengyao realized how important he was to her. She hadn't seen Lin Yi for a while, and there were so many things she wanted to say, but at this moment, all of them turned into 2 words. Chapter 3303. My strength isn't as strong as Xiao Xiao's. Mengyao smiled. How did you get here so fast? I thought you'd have to wait. How could I not come when you're in trouble? Lin Yi said. Don't worry about Jiangwen, leave it to me. It's not a big deal. Grand Elder's injured. Mengyao sighed. She's injured now, and won't be able to recover in a short period of time. She won't have the chance to step into Sky-class late-phase peak. It's a loss to the palace. Haha, Yao Yao, you don't need to say anything, I understand what you mean. Lin Yi smiled. That old woman deserves it, she's so snobbish. But you're the palace master of the Dark Palace, I'll still help. And thank you? Mengyao knew that Lin Yi had an opinion of Grand Elder, but she was the palace master now, and naturally, she couldn't consider her own feelings. She had to look at the bigger picture, and she was responsible for the rise and fall of the Dark Palace. Grand Elder may be a bit snobbish, but her feelings for the Dark Palace are unparalleled. I know that, otherwise I wouldn't have helped, Lin Yi said. When this is over, I'll help her heal. I actually want to raise your strength to Earth-class late-phase peak, but I'm afraid that it'll affect your own training. And I don't need it. I'm already very fast with my own training. Mengyao didn't really mind. But I don't know if those people will come today? Lin Yi, are you sure? Don't worry. Lin Yi smiled. If I wasn't sure, I'd just bring you guys back to West Star Village. That's true. Mengyao couldn't help but smile. As for whether they'll come today, I'm sure they will, Lin Yi said with certainty. Why? How do you know? Mengyao paused. There's a mole in your palace of darkness, Lin said. A mole? Meng Yao's face changed. But then he remembered something. Zhao Qibing? That's right, that's him. Lin nodded. It seems that Yao's position as palace mistress wasn't picked up for nothing. She is still very powerful. Meng Yao's face reddened at Lin Yi's words. She humphed. You think I really don't know anything? Yeah, he can even manage me. What's the big deal about managing the palace of darkness? Lin Yi laughed. Meng Yao was a little shy. He ignored the topic of Lin Yi and changed the topic. Zhao Qibing, this kid sure has guts. It seems like my punishment was too light. Don't touch him for now. It won't be too late to deal with him after this matter is over. Lin Yi waved his hand. Okay, I'll listen to you. Meng Yao and Lin Yi walked towards the guest room. At this time, the Grand Elder got the news of Lin Yi's arrival. Although Meng Yao had full control of the Palace of Darkness, that wasn't the case. These people had betrayed the Grand Elder. The moment Lin Yi came, the other elders went to inform the Grand Elder. In the eyes of these disciples, the Grand Elder was always behind closed doors, but these elders could still go and look for the Grand Elder. Elder Su. You're saying that Lin Yi came with his head up high, without any worry or helplessness. The Grand Elder heard Elder Su's report. It was strange. She didn't think highly of Lin Yi, and Lin Yi didn't show his face before. This time, he showed up as soon as Meng Yao called him. What did this mean? Was he really confident, or was he just acting for the sake of his woman? That arrogance was just to scare off the robbers? From the Grand Elder's perspective, Lin Yi shouldn't be that strong. If Lin Yi really was strong, why would he be chased by the overseas practitioners? Plus, it had been so long since the chase, why was he still hiding and not showing his face? If Lin Yi was really that strong, why would he need to hide? So the Grand Elder felt that it was the latter. Lin Yi was an impulsive person for a woman. This made the Grand Elder look down on Lin Yi even more. She humphed and shook her head. Does he really think that acting can scare off those people? How naive! In the past, when the people killed by the blood-clothed underworld sect all misunderstood you, you might be able to scare them off. But now, who would believe you? Ah, Yao, you're still too young. You're easily blinded by love, just like Yuan back then. Then, Grand Elder, what should we do now? Elder Su smiled bitterly. If it was Yuan in the past, he'd still talk behind her back, but now that it was Meng Yao, he didn't dare say anything. He could only ask carefully and awkwardly. Forget it, when those people come again, I'll talk to them. If it really doesn't work, we'll just give them the Palace of Darkness first and I'll think of something. As long as there's life, there's hope. I'll talk to Yao. After seeing that Lin Yi isn't reliable, she'll be disappointed. I'll talk to her again and let her marry into the Sky Elixir sect. With the Sky Elixir sect backing us up, these people will have to leave the same way they came in. The Grand Elder said helplessly. Grand Elder, you're really thoughtful. Elder Su quickly said. The Grand Elder waved his hand. Forget it, this is a good thing. Let Yao understand that those practitioners aren't reliable at all. But just as the two were talking, a disciple came running over, panting. This disciple was Elder Su's confidant, so he came here first instead of looking for Meng Yao. Every elder had their own confidant disciple, their personal disciple. On the surface, these disciples were under Meng Yao's management, but they only listened to Meng Yao in general. If you really thought about it, they were still the best with their own master. But there was nothing she could do about it. Every sect was like that, and Meng Yao couldn't change that. As long as they didn't cause trouble, Meng Yao wouldn't care about them. After all, there weren't many direct disciples like that, and an elder would only have one or two. The rest were just normal disciples. Chapter 3304. Therefore, this disciple didn't even dare to show his face and ran over to report to Grand Elder and Elder Su while panting heavily. What? They're here so soon? Grand Elder froze. She didn't think that these bandits would come so soon after Lin Yi came. What a coincidence! However, she didn't have high hopes for Lin Yi. She wanted to hold on for a few more days and wait for her injuries to recover before dealing with them, but now it seemed like she had no choice but to go out. With that thought, Grand Elder helplessly said to Elder Sue beside her, "Elder Sue, help me out and take a look." "Yes, Grand Elder," Elder Sue hurriedly replied. And the group of people Kong Ming Ming sent had a clear goal. They were here for Lin Yi. They lured Lin Yi out to confirm Lin Yi's strength. Their plan was to heavily injure Lin Yi, but not kill him. This way, Lin Yi's enemies would definitely come out and kill Lin Yi. They wouldn't expose anything and wouldn't become enemies with Boss Bai. Even if Boss Bai guessed that they didn't kill Lin Yi, Boss Bai couldn't do anything about it. Of course, if their enemies didn't make a move, then these people would kill Lin Yi themselves. So, even though they knew that Lin Yi was in the Dark Palace, they didn't make a ruckus at the entrance. Instead, they rushed into the Dark Palace to find Lin Yi. Their goal was clear. They didn't see any disciples guarding the entrance of the Dark Palace, so they didn't ask any questions. After rushing in, they headed straight for the guest room. It wasn't that they knew that Lin Yi was in the guest room, but that Zhao Qibing had informed Kong Ming Ming about Lin Yi's current location, and that was why these people went straight to the guest room. In the living room, Lin Yi and Meng Yao were reminiscing about old times. The two hadn't seen each other for a long time, and there were so many things they wanted to talk about. Lin Yi told Meng Yao about his experiences recently, and Meng Yao talked about how she built up her authority in the Palace of Darkness. The two of them had different experiences, but it was as if their hearts were connected. When they talked about these things, they felt especially warm and happy for each other. However, this beautiful scene did not last long. As the two of them were talking, there was a rush of footsteps coming from the door of the living room. This was Little 3, Little 4, and Little 5 leading a group of people over. "Little 5, how is it? What's Lin Yi's strength?" Little 3 was a calm person. Although Lin Yi's strength had been exposed before, he had to confirm it again. Otherwise, he wouldn't feel at ease. "Let me see." Little 5 stood at the door and didn't step in. He looked at Lin Yi, and in an instant, he knew Lin Yi's strength level. "Brother 3, Lin Yi's strength is Sky Class Middle Phase now." "Oh? So it's only Sky Class Middle Phase?" Little 3 sighed in relief. It seemed that Lin Yi's actual strength wasn't that high. He didn't know how the rumors about him killing Sky Class Late Phase Peak Masters got out. It was a scam. "Yes, only Sky Class Middle Phase," Little 5 confirmed. "Let's go, follow me in." Little 3 laughed coldly, thinking about how to humiliate Lin Yi later. Before he came, he got Kong Ming Ming's instructions. Before he hurt Lin Yi, he had to humiliate and mock Lin Yi as much as possible, making Lin Yi feel ashamed. Even if Kong Ming Ming didn't say anything, Little 3 would still do it, not to mention that Kong Ming Ming, the Xianqian elder's son-in-law, had said something. So, when Little 3 entered, he looked at Meng Yao angrily. "Girl, is that old woman from your Dark Palace dead yet? Have you made your decision? Are you prepared to give up the Dark Palace to us? You need to know that we're here today to take over the Dark Palace." Meng Yao was about to say something but was interrupted by Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't seem to care about Little 3 at all, continuing. "Our second-level automatic cauldrons are going to be on the market soon. Does the Dark Palace need a few?" Meng Yao paused, knowing that Lin Yi was looking down on them. She smiled. "If it's possible, of course I want them. I'm not going through the back door, am I? Haha, we're family. I'll talk to Jing Jing about it." Lin Yi smiled. Then I won't participate in the auction," Meng Yao said with a smile. The practitioners' trade fair was for the sake of building momentum, and not just anyone could attend the opening of the second-level automatic cauldrons. You'd have to make a reservation first and get the right to bid before you could attend the auction. After all, the cultivators all knew about the magic of the first-level automatic cauldrons. Now that the second-level automatic cauldrons were on the market, Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company was a golden signboard. It wasn't like before when the first-level automatic cauldrons were on the market, where everyone was skeptical. Now, it had attracted the attention of many ancient sects before it even hit the market. Meng Yao's dark palace, on the other hand, naturally wanted to buy a few cauldrons as well. If they were as convenient as the first-level cauldrons, then their first-level refiners would be able to make second-level pills. One had to know that the first-level refiner from the Dark Palace had the skills to make second-level pills, but he didn't have enough experience and control. That was why he failed so many times and didn't officially become a second-level refiner. If this second-level automatic cauldron was the same as the first-level automatic cauldrons, and didn't have such strict requirements for the refiner, as long as they could control the fire and change the temperature, then the Dark Palace would be able to make second-level pills. Fuck! Are you deaf? Didn't you hear what I said? Lil 3 was about to explode. This was blatant disrespect. At this moment, he couldn't take it anymore. Looking at the direction the guard left, a faint light flashed in Lin Yi's eyes. Because Lin Yi wasn't looking at the guard, but at an old acquaintance of Lin Yi's. This person was Zhao Qibing. Fuck, Lin Yi, you're still trying to act cool in front of me? You think I don't know your real situation? You're just a sky-class mid-phase master, and you're being chased like a stray dog. If you acted cool in front of me before, I wouldn't dare do anything because of the rumors, but why would I be afraid of you now? Chapter 3305. Yao Yao, who's this idiot? Is he a disciple of the Dark Palace? How can he be so unruly? Lin Yi's words were arrogant, but Lin Yi's goal was to anger Little 3. Pfft. Meng Yao couldn't help but laugh when she heard Lin Yi call Little 3. Lin Yi, this idiot. This idiot isn't from the Dark Palace. I don't know where he came from. Meng Yao trusted Lin Yi, so she said whatever Lin Yi said. She didn't think that Lin Yi wasn't a match for these people. Little girl, do you think that just because this kid is here, he can support you? Idiot? I'd like to see who's the big idiot here. Little 3 humphed coldly and walked towards Lin Yi. Sky-class mid-phase kid, you dare to be arrogant in front of me? Today, I'll let you know why flowers are so red. Little 3 said these words to disguise himself, to make himself look like an ancient sect robber group. He didn't want to cause trouble for the Xianqian ancestor, and didn't want people to suspect his background. Noisy! Lin Yi stood up and started the mantra for Frenzy Fist in his mind, but on the surface, he looked calm and didn't look like he was facing a great enemy. When Little 3 walked over, Lin Yi waved his hand casually and pushed out. Frenzy 8 trigrams palm 11th form! The 50% increase in attack rate came into effect at this time. Once Lin Yi used this move, Little 3 would die for sure. Lin Yi was very clear about the power of the 11th form of Frenzy 8 trigrams palm. Little 3 didn't care before, but Lin Yi's true strength had been exposed, and with Little 5's help, it didn't matter. Lin Yi was only a sky-class mid-phase now, he wasn't a threat at all. Plus, when Lin Yi stood up, he used the mantra, allowing Little 3 to truly feel the strength that Lin Yi was exhibiting, sky-class mid-phase without a doubt. So, Little 3 wasn't afraid of Lin Yi's ability at all. In his eyes, Lin Yi was someone he could do whatever he wanted to him. However, the moment Lin Yi unleashed his technique, Little 3 suddenly felt that something was wrong. No. This was definitely not a martial skill that a heaven-rank middle-stage expert could use, definitely not. Little 3 quickly tried to use the incantation to protect itself with pure qi, but it was too late. Lin Yi's move was too fast, and Little 3 wasn't prepared for it at all. As a result, Little San was truly unlucky and miserable. Boom dash! Lin Yi's seemingly casual palm landed heavily on Little 3's chest, and Little 3, who had just been clamoring for Lin Yi to see why the flowers were so red, suddenly flew into the air, and flew backwards, and in his mouth was Little 3. At this moment, he spat out a stream of blood. Yao Yao, look, he's right. I finally see why the flowers are so red. Lin Yi pointed at the rain of blood that Little 3 spat out and smiled faintly. And, although it was a bloody scene, as the palace master of the Dark Palace, Meng Yao had long gotten used to it, so she didn't think it was scary. On the contrary, she was extremely excited. Lin Yi was really powerful, those rumors. What a joke! Who was Little 3? That was a Sky-class late-phase peak master, and he was killed in one move by Lin Yi, and they even said that Lin Yi was being chased by a Sky-class late-phase peak master from the association? Who was the one chasing who? Was it the other way around? Could it be that the Overseas Cultivators Association was trying to protect their own reputation? That's why they made up such a lie, making everyone think that the one being chased was Lin Yi, when in fact, they were the ones being chased? Of course, it wasn't just Meng Yao who was shocked, Little 4 and Little 5 who were standing at the door, as well as the people behind them. Little 4 and Little 5 looked at the flying Little 3, and their hearts couldn't be any more shaken. The two of them subconsciously took a few steps back, looking at Little 3 who had landed heavily on the ground. His eyes were bulging, and blood was flowing out of all his orifices, dyeing his mask red. There was a huge dent in his chest, evidently dead. Even with a 4th-level Great Recover pill, it wouldn't be able to save Little 3's life. This move was too ruthless and too fierce, but what shocked them was, what kind of master was Lin Yi? Why was it that when he used the mantra, he displayed the strength of a Sky-class mid-phase master, and even now, Lin Yi was still using the mantra, and the strength he displayed was still that of a Sky-class mid-phase master? How could the martial technique he used be so powerful? They had seen their master, the Xianqian ancestor, use the martial technique, and the power of the martial technique used by the Xianqian ancestor should not be so powerful, right? Only an expert with the strength of a Sky-class late-phase master at the Great Perfection Realm could achieve such a huge power, to be able to kill a Sky-class late-phase master in an instant. Moreover, this Sky-class late-phase master at the Great Perfection Realm couldn't be an ordinary Sky-class late-phase master at the Great Perfection Realm. It had to be a super master like the Xianqian ancestor, who was stronger than other Great Perfection Realm masters. Could it be that Lin Yi's current strength was already the same as the Xianqian ancestor? But how was this possible? However, to say that it was impossible, this was the truth that they had seen with their own eyes. It was 100 times more shocking than hearsay, and it couldn't be faked. Therefore, Little 4 and Little 5 were a little confused. Originally, they came to look for trouble and wanted to injure Lin Yi, but now it seemed that Lin Yi didn't injure them. No, it should be said that it was not bad that Lin Yi didn't kill them. Little 3 was the strongest existence among the three of them, but this strongest existence was killed by Lin Yi in one move, and he couldn't be more dead. Chapter 3306. Tell me, who sent you here? Lin Yi asked faintly. Who sent us here? We're here to rob, but we're eyeing the Dark Palace and want to take over this place. Little 4's heart jumped. Could it be that Lin Yi noticed something? But he would never admit it. If that was the case, then if Lin Yi knew that they were the Xianqian ancestors' disciples, wouldn't he just kill them all? One had to know that the hatred between Lin Yi and the Xianqian ancestor wasn't hidden, it was out in the open. Lin Yi even dared to torture the Xianqian ancestor's daughter, Little 11. Would Lin Yi let them go, not to mention these disciples who came looking for trouble? So, they couldn't admit it. Whether it was for confidentiality or to save their lives, they couldn't say it. Lin Yi's mouth flashed with a hint of mockery. Lin Yi knew that they wouldn't say it, but it didn't matter if they didn't. Lin Yi knew who sent them, he didn't need to prove anything. However, at this moment, when Lin Yi was about to say something, there was a sudden sound of hurried footsteps coming from the side door of the living room. It was the Grand Elder, with Elder Su's help, coming to the living room. As soon as the Grand Elder entered, he saw Lin Yi, Meng Yao, and the robbers standing opposite each other in the living room. He thought that they were about to start a fight, and he jumped in fright. "Heroes, let's talk this out, I'm late." The Grand Elder didn't understand the situation, thinking that the Dark Palace was still a weak group. Seeing the blood on the floor, he thought that one of the disciples was injured, so he lowered his stance and spoke in a flattering tone. He had no choice, he had to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. This was the Grand Elder's principle. Where there's life, there's hope. If the Dark Palace was destroyed, then everything would be destroyed. Even if there was a glimmer of hope, he had to fight for it. Heroes, don't you want the Dark Palace's territory? All right, I'll have all my disciples withdraw from this place today. I'll hand over this place to you heroes to establish your own sects. The Great Elder continued. Ga? Little 4 and Little 5 were a little confused. What was this Grand Elder doing here again? Could it be that she saw someone backing her up, so she deliberately came over to act cool? That must be it. With the current situation, how would Little 4 and Little 5 dare to ask for Dark Palace's territory? Wasn't that courting death? As soon as they moved in, they were all killed by Lin Yi. Anyone with a brain wouldn't do such a suicidal thing. Therefore, in the eyes of Little 4 and Little 5, the Great Elder was a typical example of a pretentious old man. However, even though they knew that the Great Elder was pretending to be pretentious, they didn't dare to complain. Didn't they see that Lin Yi was still standing there like a tiger eyeing its prey? Could it be that they really didn't want to live anymore, daring to go against Lin Yi head-on? So although Little 4's expression was a little ugly, he still carefully said in a pleasant tone, Great Elder. We brothers had eyes but didn't recognize empty tie. We didn't know that the Dark Palace has such a strong backing now. Please don't make fun of us, Palace Master Chu, we didn't know that your boyfriend was so strong. If we knew, we wouldn't dare to do anything even if you gave us 100 guts. We were wrong. We'll leave now, Little 5 said in fear. Yes, we'll leave now, Little 4 said as he prepared to collect Little 3's corpse on the ground. At this time, the Great Elder suddenly realized that the dead person on the ground wasn't some disciple of the Dark Palace. It was the person who injured him with one palm. Although his face was masked, his figure was still fresh in the Great Elder's memory. Wasn't this person the leader? How did he die? Wait, could it be that Lin Yi killed him? Otherwise, why would these people smile and be so careful? The Grand Elder was dumbfounded at the thought. How did Lin Yi really have the ability to do this? Not only did he subdue these people, he even killed the leader of the robbers. One had to know that the robber was a peak late phase heaven class master. Did I let you leave? Before the Great Elder could recover from the shock, Lin Yi's cold voice rang out again. This caused the heart of Little 4, who was collecting Little 3's corpse, to suddenly tremble. His hands also stopped moving, not daring to continue. Raising his head, he carefully said with a smile, Young hero. That's Senior, we know we were wrong, you. What do you mean? You think this is your home? Lin Yi looked at Little 4 and said indifferently, Do you think there's such a good thing in this world? Are you going back and forth through the city gate? Senior, then what do you think we should do? Little 4 was speechless. It seemed that Lin Yi was someone with real strength and confidence, and he wasn't just showing off. Now, he was a little regretful. Why didn't he investigate clearly before coming? However, how could Little 4 know something that even Patriarch Xianxin and Kang Mingming didn't know? How about this? Since you admit your mistakes, you can be spared from death, but you can't escape punishment. Both of you, stand out and let me hit each of you once. Then we'll forget about this matter. Lin Yi looked at Little 4 and Little 5 and said slowly. At this moment, Lin Yi had already recovered his physical strength and true qi. Moreover, he had recovered to his peak state. Lin Yi did this not just to punish them, but also to intimidate them. He wanted Patriarch Xianxin to know that Lin Yi was very powerful now and could attack continuously. He could casually kill and injure a peak late phase heaven class master. This? Senior, we don't want to die. Little 4's face darkened. If we just stood there and let you hit us once, would it be good? Wouldn't we be directly beaten to death by you? I can guarantee that I won't beat you to death. I will be merciful and just punish you. Lin Yi looked at the two of them. Although he sneered on the surface, he was smiling bitterly in his heart. It would be difficult for me to kill the two of you. Under the premise that you are on guard, it is not realistic to want to kill you. Really? Little 4 looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. Do you have the capital to bargain with me? Lin Yi said very coldly. If you don't want to accept punishment, then stay here. Chapter 3307. If Lin Yi really wanted to kill them, then so be it. What else could they do to resist? Thinking of this, Little 4 and Little 5 could only compromise. The two of them walked to the living room, trembling with fear. They closed their eyes and began to circulate their true chi to protect their bodies. Raging Fire 8 Trigram Palm, 11th form! Lin Yi once again used the Raging Fire 8 Trigram Palm on Little 4's chest. Boom! Under Lin Yi's attack, Little 4's entire body flew out quickly and landed heavily on the wall behind the living room. With a loud bang, the wall cracked in several places. However, after vomiting a few mouthfuls of blood, he realized that he was still alive and immediately heaved a sigh of relief. However, this situation did not last long. Little 4 wanted to circulate his heart sutra to heal himself, but he was shocked to find that most of the meridians in his body had been broken. In other words, he was now a cripple. Unless he had a top-grade 4th-grade Great Recover pill, he would become a cripple like Tagam Long. At this time, Lin Yi attacked again. Raging Fire 8 Trigram Palm, 10th form! Lin Yi's remaining true chi was not enough to activate the 11th form of the Raging Fire 8 Trigram Palm. However, it was still more than enough to activate the 10th form. This 10th form also happened to trigger the attack bonus of the Essence Necklace. Boom! Under Lin Yi's attack, Little 5 also followed in Little 4's footsteps. His entire body flew out and landed heavily on the wall that Little 4 had hit before. This time, there was another loud bang. This time, it directly smashed a big hole in the already broken wall of the living room. With the attack bonus of the Essence Necklace, the power of the 10th form of the Raging Fire 8 Trigram Palm and the 11th form of the Raging Fire 8 Trigram Palm without the attack bonus were actually not much different. Therefore, in the eyes of these two people, Lin Yi had activated the same move. There was no difference. Xiaowu also spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. His meridians were all broken, but he did not die, nor did he faint. This was the benefit of their true chi protection. Otherwise they would not have died, but they would definitely be in a vegetative state like Tagam Long. One had to know that even if the 11th move of the Frenzied Fire 8 Trigrams Palm was not enhanced in terms of attack, its power was still very shocking. All right, take them and leave. Lin Yi ordered the lackeys brought by Little 3, Little 4, and Little 5. Lin Yi wasn't interested in dealing with these people, and he needed them to bring these 3 people back. Yes. Senior. The 5 Elements Sect's disciples at the door were already scared out of their wits. Little 3, Little 4, and Little 5 were second only to Little 1 and Little 2, the 2 5 Elements Sect's peak late phase senior brothers. But they were beaten to death and heavily injured just like that. It was not difficult at all. How powerful was this? They didn't dare to stay or ask any more questions. They all walked in and quickly carried Little 3's corpse. Together with the 2 crippled Little 4 and Little 5, they left the Dark Palace's guest hall dejectedly. They ran as fast as they could, without stopping at all. Phew! Lin Yi let out a long breath. These 2 moves of the Raging Fire 8 Trigram Palm had already used up all the true chi in Lin Yi's body. If these disciples attacked together, Lin Yi would really be in trouble. After all, the Supreme Elder who was a peak late phase Heaven Stage Master was seriously injured and could not fight. The other disciples and elders of the Dark Palace were not strong. They had no confidence in winning against those lackeys. Although the possibility of those lackeys daring to do anything was almost zero, it was still a relief to see them leave. That young hero Lin. The Supreme Elder was completely shocked. So, Lin Yi was not the kind of rogue cultivator who only knew how to boast and spread rumors. He was a real master. These 3 peak late phase Heaven Stage bandits, how mighty and powerful were they? But in front of Lin Yi, they were either dead or injured. There was no room for negotiation at all. It seemed like her previous strategy was wrong. She had to build a good relationship with Lin Yi in the future. Lin Yi looked at the Supreme Elder faintly. Back in the villa, Lin Yi was no match for the Supreme Elder, but now, Lin Yi didn't care about her at all. Lin Yi didn't have a good impression of a snobbish person like her, but for Ming Yao's sake and the Supreme Elder's face, Lin Yi didn't do anything too extreme. He only said coldly, "I'm tired, Yao Yao. Get me a room, I need to rest." "Okay." Meng Yao, naturally, knew what was going on with Lin Yi. Lin Yi must have used up all the true qi in his body, so he needed to find a place to recover. She said to the disciple beside her without hesitation, "Go get a room, I'll bring Lin Yi there." "Yes, Palace Master." The disciple respected Lin Yi a lot. Lin Yi's one move had saved the Palace of Darkness from a disaster. Back then, the disciples of the Palace of Darkness had been living in fear, afraid that the bandits would come and they wouldn't have a place to stay. Those people had taken over the Palace of Darkness, and they would chase the original people out. But now, Lin Yi had saved the Palace of Darkness, saving their fates. They were filled with gratitude towards Lin Yi. The Supreme Elder wasn't angry at being ignored by Lin Yi. Instead, she laughed. "That's right, Yao Yao. Bring young hero Lin to rest. He's your husband, don't neglect him. You may be the Palace Master, but you have to listen to your husband." "Huh!" Meng Yao looked at the Grand Elder, flabbergasted. She didn't understand what the Grand Elder was saying. Why was he saying that? What did he mean by, "He's your husband"? She and Lin Yi were just boyfriend and girlfriend. Plus, didn't the Supreme Elder never support her being with Lin Yi? From boyfriend to husband just like that. But after a moment of shock, Meng Yao understood what the Supreme Elder meant. The Supreme Elder saw how strong Lin Yi was and wanted to get closer to Lin Yi. Chapter 3308. Meng Yao was speechless. This Grand Elder. Why was he acting like a matchmaker? The words sent a chill down Meng Yao's spine. She used to look down on Lin Yi for being a freelancer, but now, Lin Yi looked at the Grand Elder coldly. To be honest, he didn't like the Grand Elder's attitude at all. She was the epitome of someone who swayed with the wind. But Lin Yi didn't say anything and walked out of the lounge. The Grand Elder didn't dare say anything after that cold stare from Lin Yi. With Elder Chui's support, he followed behind carefully. The disciple from before had already prepared the guest room, and Lin Yi stayed there for the time being. Activating the skill just now had exhausted all of Lin Yi's energy, so Lin Yi needed some rest. Meng Yao didn't bother Lin Yi anymore. She turned around to deal with the rest of the matters in the Palace of Darkness. She wanted to call for a palace meeting to appease the disciples. After all, what happened before had given them a lot of pressure. Meng Yao turned around and saw the Grand Elder running towards her. She paused. "Grand Elder, you're injured. What are you running for?" Meng Yao didn't like the Grand Elder's swaying personality, but the Grand Elder had acknowledged Lin Yi. She didn't need to look at the Grand Elder's face when contacting Lin Yi in the future. "Yao Yao, is young Master Lin resting?" the Grand Elder asked carefully. "Yes, he rushed here last night and then faced such a fierce battle. Of course he's tired and needs to rest." Meng Yao, naturally, wouldn't say that Lin Yi had used up all of his energy. Instead, she made it sound like he had rushed here last night. "Oh." Grand Elder didn't ask much, she was just asking casually. Her real purpose wasn't this. "Yao Yao, you see, when are you going to hold your engagement ceremony with young hero Lin?" "Ah? Why would I hold an engagement ceremony? Since when did I have an engagement ceremony?" Meng Yao looked at the Grand Elder stunned. "Yao Yao, it's not that I want to criticize you, but the Grand Elder is also an experienced person. I've long felt that this Lin Yi isn't a normal person, but a super master. So Yao Yao, a person like this must have a lot of pursuers. For example, that Yushu in your family, Su Shihan, people like that, they must like Lin Yi too. So you must hurry up, you must get young hero Lin first, confirm your relationship, don't let others take him away." "What the hell are you talking about?" Meng Yao was speechless from the Grand Elder's words. "What do you mean you've long known that Lin Yi isn't immortal? Didn't you say that he was a rogue cultivator? You even told me to cut off all ties with him, and now you want to get engaged? Do you have to be so shameless?" "Yao Yao, don't think that I'm annoying, I'm just telling the truth." The Grand Elder sighed. You must think that I'm someone who changes my words according to the wind, that I'm trying to suck up to Lin Yi just because he's strong, right? Meng Yao didn't reply, but her silence meant that she agreed with the Grand Elder's words. Indeed, that was what Meng Yao was thinking. She said bad things about Lin Yi before, and now that Lin Yi had revealed his strength, he wanted her to get engaged to Lin Yi. Yao Yao, I'm already injured, and I can't break through to the level of perfection. This injury isn't very likely to heal, so I don't think I'll live much longer. The Palace of Darkness will continue to flourish in your hands. The Great Elder didn't care at all and continued. My whole life, all I want is for the Palace of Darkness to become a first-class sect in the ancient times. Face, vanity, those are all fake. You may think I'm shameless, but I want to say that I'm just like that. As long as the Palace of Darkness is good, you can insult me or even kill me, it's all fine, it doesn't matter. So Yao Yao, this is also a request of mine. You must capture Lin Yi, this is the chance for our Palace of Darkness to soar. Meng Yao was filled with emotions as she listened to the Grand Elder's heartfelt words. Yes, she did look down on the Grand Elder before, thinking that she was someone who changed her ways according to the wind. She scolded Lin Yi one moment, and now she's trying to get on Lin Yi's good side. Shameless to the extreme. Chapter 3309. Grand Elder, go rest. We'll go find you when Lin Yi's done resting. Meng Yao sighed as she spoke to the Grand Elder. Okay, then I'll wait quietly in the room for young hero Lin to come and heal me. The Supreme Elder turned around and left with a smile. A smile appeared on Meng Yao's lips as she watched the Grand Elder leave. At this moment, she had finally become the Palace Master of the Dark Palace, truly in control of the palace. From now on, even the Grand Elder would have to listen to her. Mom, your daughter did it, with Lin Yi's help. Are you happy? In actuality, Meng Yao's control of the Palace of Darkness had always been because she wanted to clear her mother's name. In the future, when Yuan came back to the Palace of Darkness, who would dare to go against her? Come in, Yao Yao! Lin Yi's voice sounded in the room, pulling Meng Yao back from her thoughts. She quickly pushed the door open and entered Lin Yi's room. Lin Yi, you recovered your qi? Meng Yao was a bit surprised Lin Yi recovered in such a short time. Not yet, but it's fine now. Let's talk, Lin Yi said. Okay. Meng Yao nodded and sat beside Lin Yi. Yao Yao, finally, is there any news about that Sky-class island plan? Lin Yi was most concerned about the future inheritor's Sky-class island plan. This had been linked to Lin Yi's fate since the moment Xiao Xiao stayed in the Ice Palace. But what pissed Lin Yi off the most was that the mastermind of this was Elder Xianqin, his archenemy. Not yet. Meng Yao shook her head. Dark Palace and Five Elements sect don't have a good relationship. We'll have to wait for the Sky-class meeting in the future to find out the details. I understand, I'll go to this meeting. Lin Yi nodded. As Meng Yao and Lin Yi were chatting, Kang Mingming was in Elder Xuanqin's room. The two were imagining the tragedy in Dark Palace when footsteps came from the door. Kang Mingming guessed that the people he sent out were back. They should be back by now. Elder, it should be San, Si, and Wu. Kang Mingming stood up. I'll go open the door. All right. Elder Xianqin nodded. However, when Kang Xiaoming opened the door, the person standing outside wasn't Xiao San and the others, but the person in charge of guarding the Soul Jade Tablet of Five Elements School. Patriarch Xianqin, this is bad. Third senior brother's Soul Jade card has shattered. The disciple held up a broken Soul Jade card and said anxiously. What? Elder Xianqin stood up and stared at the Soul Jade in the disciple's hand. His eyes widened, filled with disbelief and shock. How could it be? Could little San have been killed? Otherwise, why would his Soul Jade plate shatter into pieces? What about the others? Elder Xianqin asked. What about Si and Wu? Fourth senior brother and fifth senior brother's Soul Jade tablets are fine, the disciple replied carefully. Elder Xianqin breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that only San died, and Si and Wu were fine. That was good, as long as they weren't all wiped out. Could it be that the blood-clothed underworld sect made a move? Elder Xianchen frowned. The development of the matter made him very angry. The blood-clothed underworld sect actually intervened again. It seemed that if he didn't show up, the blood-clothed underworld sect wouldn't know how high the sky was. But it was no wonder that Elder Xianchen thought that San was killed by the blood-clothed underworld sect. In his opinion, San was an expert at the peak of the late stage of Heaven's stage. In the Dark Night Palace, no one could do anything to him, let alone Lin Yi. Then, the only one who made a move was the blood-clothed underworld sect. Just as Patriarch Xianchen was guessing, the disciples of the Five Elements sect brought Little 3, Little 4, and Little 5 to Patriarch Xianchen's room. Seeing that the door wasn't closed, these disciples couldn't be bothered anymore. They rushed in and immediately reported to Patriarch Xianchen. "You guys are..." Elder Xianchen looked at these people who came in. Elder Xianchen wasn't surprised to see San's body being carried by a disciple. The soul jade tablet was broken, so San definitely had no chance of survival. However, Si and Wu were also carried back by someone. This made Elder Xianchen's heart skip a beat. "Master, fifth junior brother and I are crippled," Si said with a gloomy face. He knew his injuries and knew that even with his master's ability, he couldn't save them. They could only be cripples for the rest of their lives. "What? Damn blood-clothed underworld sect, this old man isn't finished with you." Elder Xianchen went berserk on the spot. He knew that Si would never speak nonsense. If he said they were crippled, then they were really crippled. There was no hope of recovery. Otherwise, it would only be called an injury, not a cripple. Blood-clothed underworld sect? Si was stunned. Why did the blood-clothed underworld sect come to this again? What did this have to do with the blood-clothed underworld sect? Not even a shadow of the blood-clothed underworld sect appeared. What happened today wasn't done by the blood-clothed underworld sect? Seeing the shocked expression on Si's face, Elder Xianchen immediately realized that things might not be as he imagined. "Master, the one who made a move today was Lin Yi," Si said hatefully. "That Lin Yi's strength doesn't exist. He killed third senior brother in one move and crippled me and fifth junior brother in 2 moves. What do you mean by being chased overseas like a stray dog? That's just bullshit. Lin Yi is amazing. With his strength, I don't think he's any worse than Master." "What?" A haze flashed on Elder Xianchen's face. He Luoluo actually dared to deceive him? Although Elder Xianchen didn't believe that he Luoluo dared to deceive him, it was impossible for his disciples to lie. The facts were right in front of him. 3 of his disciples were beaten up by Lin Yi, 1 dead and 2 crippled. How could this say that Lin Yi didn't have strength? Lin Yi is now a peak late-stage Heaven Realm expert with great perfection strength. No, he's only mid-stage Heaven Realm, Little Wu said with certainty. I've checked several times. Moreover, from the strength he displayed when using the mantra, he's only mid-stage Heaven Realm. However, the martial skills he used are definitely at the great perfection level. Chapter 33:10. This was also in line with the rumors about Lin Yi in the past, which was that he killed high-level cultivators in seconds as a low-level cultivator. Could it be that Lin Yi was hiding something when he was overseas? Patriarch Xianchen frowned. It seemed that he had made a bad move. He guessed that those who went to find trouble with the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect must have found out some inside information. Otherwise, it was no wonder that these people didn't go after Lin Yi for so long. They didn't dare to do so. He had foolishly sent people to the Dark Night Palace, but the result was that they were either dead or crippled, and there was no way to avenge his disciple. In that case, Lin Yi still has the ability to kill high-level cultivators in seconds? Patriarch Xianchen frowned and asked. Yes, Master. Little 4 was a little sad. My injuries and Little 5's, go and rest first. I'll think of something. Patriarch Xianchen gestured for Little 4 and Little 5 to be at ease. In fact, he was just saying it. If he had a way, Taganlong would have been cured long ago, and he wouldn't have to become enemies with Lin Yi. Not only was Little 11 injured by Lin Yi, but Little 1's divine weapon was also taken away by Lin Yi. Yes, master. Although they knew that the chances of recovery weren't high, they still had hope that Patriarch Xiantian would be able to think of a solution. Patriarch Xuantian's injuries were the same, and he hadn't recovered, let alone the two of them. After little 4 and little 5 left, Patriarch Xiantian sighed. Zhaoming, what do you think about this? Father-in-law, it seems that the Overseas Cultivators Association wants to trick us. Isn't this a false report? We have suffered heavy losses. We can't let them go. Kang Mingming knew that he had no way to deal with Lin Yi, so he directly targeted the Overseas Cultivators Association. He needed someone to vent his anger on, right? Zhaoming, you don't know my relationship with He Luonan. He probably wouldn't lie to me. After calming down, Patriarch Xiantian felt that He Luoluo had no reason to lie to him. After all, the two of them were brothers and there was no conflict between them. Ah? Kang Mingming was stunned. He Luonan's surname was He, and so was Patriarch Xiantian. Kang Mingming knew this. Although he didn't know Patriarch Xuantian's real name, he knew 11th's real name, He Meiqi. Therefore, he guessed that Patriarch Xiantian and He Luonan, the president of the Overseas Cultivators Association, were related. While others address me as Old Ancestor Xiantian, my actual name is He Haiyang. Patriarch Xiantian smiled and said, This name is rather unique, so I usually don't tell others. Kang Mingming didn't know what to say after hearing Patriarch Xuantian's name. Nuclear submarine, nuclear warhead. Could they be brothers? It seemed very possible. He Luonan is my younger brother, my biological brother, so he wouldn't lie to me. Something must have gone wrong. Patriarch Xiantian waved his hand and said, Perhaps, overseas, Lin Yi wasn't acclimatized and couldn't display his strength. Sure enough. But about Lin Yi, I don't know. What you said is also possible. Kang Mingming thought about it and said, I vaguely heard before that Lin Yi had to pay a certain price to instantly kill high-level masters. I'm afraid that when he was overseas, he lacked some necessary conditions. What you said makes sense. Patriarch Xiantian nodded and said, I'll call He Luonan first and ask. After Patriarch Xiantian finished speaking, he didn't hide from Kang Mingming and directly dialed He Luonan's number. Luonan, how are your injuries? Patriarch Xiantian asked after picking up the phone. Big brother, my injuries are fine. Although I and the Red Kong people were both injured, the injuries weren't particularly serious. I can recover, He Luonan said. Big brother, you called me about Lin Yi. Is there any news? Luonan, there is news about Lin Yi. My move also forced Lin Yi out, but the result was completely different. Patriarch Xiantian sighed and told He Luonan what happened. What? Lin Yi is so powerful? Can he really kill a peak late-stage heaven-stage master? He Luonan was shocked. But why did he run away when he was overseas? Why is that? I don't know about that, I'm just calling you to ask if there's anything wrong with Lin Yi overseas, right? For example, is there an injury or some other reason? Patriarch Xiantian said. Luonan, think about it carefully. Is there anything special? I believe. He Luonan's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Waves of lingering fears surged out. If there was no problem with Lin Yi, then He Tianzu would have been killed. Even when He Luonan and the Red Conch general manager were both injured, Lin Yi could have killed both of them. However, Lin Yi didn't do so. This meant that Lin Yi had a special reason for not doing so. What was it? Suddenly, He Luonan thought of something and quickly said, Big brother, I remember. Before, when Lin Yi was overseas, he wasn't at the mid-stage of heaven stage, but at the peak early stage of heaven stage. And you just said that Lin Yi is now at the mid-stage of heaven stage. He must have broken through during this time, so I have a guess. What guess? Patriarch Xiantian asked quickly. Is it because when Lin Yi was overseas he was already on the verge of breaking through, so he didn't dare to overdraw his physical strength to activate those big moves? He was afraid that it would affect his breakthrough. So when Lin Yi was chased by us, we don't know where he hid in seclusion to level up. Now Lin Yi has successfully broken through, so when he went back, he dared to release his big moves. As for what you said about not being able to adapt to the climate overseas, I don't think it's possible. After all, it's a bit ridiculous. He Luonan analyzed. Well, what you said seems to make sense. After Patriarch Xianqian listened, he nodded in agreement. Generally, before a breakthrough, most cultivators would choose to go into seclusion to attack. They didn't dare to consume their qi to activate a big move, and Lin Yi obviously belonged to this category. Ai, big brother, then I'm lucky that I didn't chase after him. Otherwise, if I force Lin Yi, it's very likely that Tianzu would be finished. He Luoan said with lingering fear. Chapter 33:11. Okay, big brother. Even if Patriarch Xianqian didn't say anything, He Luan didn't intend to cause trouble for Lin Yi. After all, he didn't think that the Overseas Cultivators Association was Lin Yi's opponent. Wouldn't he be courting death if he went there? After hanging up the phone, Patriarch Xianqian looked at Kong Mingming and said, You heard it too. We might have guessed wrong. The Blood Underworld sect was just a smokescreen released by Lin Yi. Maybe before he went overseas, Lin Yi had signs of breaking through, so he didn't want to use martial arts to waste his physical strength in true qi, so he hired the Blood Underworld sect as a thug. But in fact, Lin Yi still has the ability to kill high-level cultivators in seconds. After listening, Kong Mingming nodded, and a hint of unwillingness flashed across his face. Father-in-law, I think Lin Yi can't be left alive anymore. He can kill experts at the peak of the late stage of Heaven stage in seconds now. In the future, won't he be able to kill you too? At that time, who in the entire cultivation world can be Lin Yi's opponent? Won't Lin Yi be able to kill whoever he wants, and no one can stop him? That's right. Patriarch Xianqian also nodded with a solemn expression. It's time to get rid of Lin Yi. Otherwise, he will definitely become a big problem in the future. Father-in-law, how about I start preparing the extreme qi-gathering pill? With Lin Yi's current strength, he's still interested in this thing. If Lin Yi's strength is higher, he won't need this pill at all. We won't be able to find a suitable way to kill him, Kong Mingming suggested. Okay, then you start preparing to refine it. It seems that this is the only way. Even if we offend Boss Bai, we have to get rid of Lin Yi. Otherwise, Lin Yi will really become a big problem. Patriarch Xianqian pondered for a moment, then nodded and said resolutely, Yes, sir. I will prepare the materials now. Kong Mingming was very happy. Patriarch Xianqian finally agreed to use this ultimate move to kill Lin Yi. This time, Lin Yi ate the ultimate qi-gathering pill. Let's see if he would die or not. Oh right, you have to keep the matter of Little San and the others a secret. Don't tell anyone, Patriarch Xianqian reminded. If Boss Bai knows that we've started to target Lin Yi, it won't be good to give the pill to Lin Yi. I understand. Kong Mingming nodded. By now, Lin Yi had recovered his strength. He asked Meng Yao to call the Grand Elder to his room. Young Hero Lin. You called for me? The Great Elder appeared in front of Lin Yi respectfully, as respectful as he could be. Grand Elder, there's no time to lose. Since Yao Yao said so, then I'll heal you, Lin Yi said faintly. Haha, then this old one thanks young hero Lin. But you're Yao Yao's husband, so you're part of the Palace of Darkness. I won't say those polite words. I'm also one of Yao Yao's soldiers. If I recover my strength, it'll be good for the Palace of Darkness. The Great Elder became Ming Yao's subordinate in the blink of an eye. It made Lin Yi speechless. Grand Elder. Let's not talk about that. Everyone knows who you were before, and what my relationship with the Palace of Darkness is. If it wasn't for Yao Yao, I wouldn't have done anything. Lin Yi waved his hand, ignoring the Elder's compliment. He didn't mind the Great Elder's compliments at all. Haha, okay. The Great Elder smiled awkwardly. Young hero Lin, what do you need me to do now? You don't need to do anything, just wait. With that, Lin Yi reached out and grabbed the Great Elder's wrist. He started channeling the third stage of the art of dragon mastery and started healing the Great Elder. Lin Yi was getting more and more familiar with the third stage of the art of dragon mastery. It greatly shortened the healing time for Lin Yi. The Great Elder's injury was nothing to Lin Yi. This level of injury was something that could be healed in an hour or so. However, as Lin Yi channeled the chant, Lin Yi was pleasantly surprised to find that the third stage of the art of dragon mastery was showing signs of completion. Could it be that the third stage was about to break through? If that was the case, Lin Yi could go to West Star Village again and open the fourth stone door. What would be inside? Lin Yi was looking forward to it. Previously, the art of dragon mastery didn't show any signs of a breakthrough. Just when Lin Yi was about to give up, it was actually about to break through. Could it be related to the breakthrough of his strength level? Lin Yi could only attribute it to this. Because the improvement of Lin Yi's strength level also meant that Lin Yi's body could hold more qi. Was it because of this that the art of dragon mastery was about to break through? This discovery made Lin Yi's heart suddenly happy. He didn't expect to treat the Great Elder's injury. Sometimes, doing good deeds could actually lead to unexpected gains. Lin Yi didn't expect that the previous period of being a fugitive would be exchanged for good things. Not only did his strength increase, but his art of dragon mastery was also about to reach the third stage of completion. After quickly treating the Great Elder's injury, Lin Yi also planned to break through his own mantra here. To be honest, Lin Yi didn't really cultivate in the space of the jade pendant during this period of time. There were too many things to do, and Lin Yi's strength level also relied on elixirs to increase, so he neglected the most basic method of leveling up. Since the mantra showed signs of a breakthrough, then Lin Yi definitely wouldn't let it go this time. The news of the ancient times spread especially fast. Even if Elder Xianqian and Kong Mingming kept quiet, but the scene that happened in the Dark Palace was seen by many disciples. These people couldn't be asked to keep it a secret, and in fact, Lin Yi didn't need them to keep it a secret. Lin Yi wanted to use these people's mouths to spread his strength. So, within a few days, the people of the ancient times knew that Lin Yi had returned and showed his power in the Dark Palace. He killed a peak late-stage heaven-class master, and injured 2 peak late-stage heaven-class masters. Chapter 33:12. Who didn't know about the close relationship between Dark Palace's Palace Master Chu Mengyao and Lin Yi? As a result, there was nothing wrong with Mengyao helping Lin Yi with this. Of course, the ones who were the most shocked were the 3 ancestors of the blood-clothed underworld sect. They were having a headache. After Lin Yi came back, should they continue to help? Although Lin Dongfang supported them, they couldn't explain to Lin Yi. Lin Dongfang didn't let the ancestors tell Lin Yi about the matter, so they really didn't have an excuse to help Lin Yi. Just as they were worrying, they suddenly heard a shocking news. Lin Yi actually killed a peak late phase heaven class master in a second and injured 2 peak late phase heaven class masters. Was this possible? The 3 ancestors of the blood-clothed underworld sect had the same thought as others because they were the ones who truly understood Lin Yi's strength. Hence, they immediately called Lin Yi. Mr. Lin Yi, I'm the blood-clothed underworld sect's Yinsen ancestor. Yinsen ancestor said directly after picking up the phone. These few days, there's a rumor circulating in the ancient world. It's said that you killed a peak late phase heaven class master in a second and injured 2 peak late phase heaven class masters? Is this true or not? It's true. Lin Yi didn't hide it. After all, the blood-clothed underworld sect had always shown enough goodwill. There was no need for Lin Yi to lie to them. Moreover, Lin Yi also wanted to spread this news. Oh? Mr. Lin Yi, you are so powerful now? Old ancestor Yinsen was shocked after hearing this and asked with some surprise. It's like this. My strength level has increased again. I'm now a mid-phase heaven class master. And with this strength, I can use a secret technique to kill peak late phase heaven class masters. Lin Yi said. I see. When Ancestor Eerie Woods heard Lin Yi personally confirm it, he heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that it was impossible for Lin Yi to speak nonsense. Since Lin Yi had said that, it meant that he was very confident. Thinking up to this point, Eerie Forest Patriarch said, "Oh right, when you were not around, the Black Dragon Sex Master was not around. The Dongfang clan, the Everyday and Everyday Sun sect, and the Black Horse Society came together to look for me. They found out that we were the ones who killed those people, but they thought that you were the one who hired us. Oh? Did they cause any trouble for you? Linny was a little apologetic, even though Bloodcloak was doing it for a mission. But in the end, they still helped him. If he hadn't spread the news that these people were killed by him, it wouldn't have been easy for them to investigate the blood-clothed underworld sect. It's been settled. However, we have to keep a low profile for now, Ancestor Eariewood said. However, I'm afraid that they will find trouble with us. To find trouble with you? I know, it doesn't matter. Thank you for the reminder, Linny said. All right, that's it for now. Ancestor Eerie Forest couldn't say too much. After all, there were some relationships that Lin Yi didn't know, so they couldn't say it. However, to Lin Yi's surprise, the Dongfang clan was also fine. The Everyday and Everyday Sun sect and the Black Horse Society chose to be silent for the time being. They didn't come to find trouble with Lin Yi because they really couldn't figure out Lin Yi's path. Lin Yi is back? And he killed a peak late-stage heaven rank expert in seconds? Even if many people held a skeptical attitude, this time, no one was stupid. When they went to find trouble with the blood-clothed underworld sect, they still had lingering fears. Now that Lin Yi was back, they really didn't dare to find trouble with him. What if Lin Yi really had the strength to kill a peak late-stage heaven rank expert in seconds? Could he kill a great perfection expert in seconds? All of these were unknown, so these people all kept silent at the same time. These days, the second-grade automatic medicinal cauldron that Lu Jinghan made had also been completed and was sent to the Cultivator Trade Association for auction. However, this time, Kong Ming wasn't worried. Because second-grade medicinal cauldrons could only be made by the Heavenly Elixir sect. Therefore, no matter how well Lin Yi's medicinal cauldron sold, the raw materials couldn't bypass Kong Ming. As long as Kong Ming didn't agree, then they wouldn't have the raw materials. Therefore, Kong Ming was prepared to make a profit from the raw materials. He didn't need to worry that it would affect his business. After all, the demand for first-grade automatic medicinal cauldrons and second-grade automatic medicinal cauldrons was different. Compared to a first-grade automatic medicinal cauldron, anyone with a fire attribute physique could become a first-grade alchemist after training and learning to control a first-grade automatic medicinal cauldron. The operating conditions for a second-grade automatic medicinal cauldron were slightly harsher. First of all, those half-baked alchemists lacked a wood attribute physique in their bodies. It was very difficult to upgrade to a second-grade alchemist. They weren't Han Jingjing, nor did they have the help of Lin Yi. The possibility of upgrading to a second-grade alchemist was almost zero. Therefore, the target of this second-grade automatic medicinal cauldron was those real alchemists. This alchemist could be someone who had just stepped into the second grade from the first grade, or a mature second-grade alchemist. In any case, as long as they were second-grade alchemists, they could use a second-grade automatic medicinal cauldron. However, the demand would be a little less. These 30 second-grade automatic medicinal cauldrons basically covered the needs of these alchemists. Even if it wasn't enough, it wouldn't be much. This was a deviation from Kong Ming's expectations. After all, Kong Ming had never seen the finished products of these second-grade automatic medicinal cauldrons. He had only heard rumors about how powerful they were and what kind of elixirs they could refine. Therefore, from his point of view, this second-grade automatic medicinal cauldron should be the same as a first-grade automatic medicinal cauldron. Any alchemist could use it. The sales should not be low. Therefore, in order to make a profit, Kong Ming had stopped the supply of second-grade cauldrons in the market the moment Right Coiling Tiger's second-grade cauldron was given to Lin Yi. His goal was to hoard them and sell them to Lin Yi at a high price. Moreover, Kong Ming was afraid that the supply would not be able to meet the demand and he wouldn't be able to make money. Therefore, he made preparations in advance to produce a batch of second-grade cauldrons and sell them to Lin Yi at a high price. Xiaoming, your idea isn't bad. Ancestor Xianchen nodded in agreement. We want to kill Lin Yi, but before Lin Yi dies, we have to squeeze out all his remaining value. With this second-grade cauldron, we can make a fortune. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.